Chapter 131. 3 days later, in the sky above the cold mountain range. All right, you can say it now. Nian Bing finally asked the question in her heart. After 3 days of meditation, he had completely mastered his own body. The toughness of his body surprised him greatly. After all, it was the body of a dragon. Now, even if he didn't use magic, a casual punch from him could make a hole in a hard rock. His strong body made him immune to magic of the 9th level and below. Without the strength of an archmage, there was no way to threaten him. Garamandes said with some embarrassment, "I fell in love with a girl in Ice Snow City. Nian Bing, seeing that I'm your big brother, you have to help me when the time comes. I see that you're quite good at chasing girls. Teach me. Although I've lived for so many years, I really don't have much experience in this area." Nian Bing looked at him dumbfounded and said, "So what Fatso said was true. But could it be that you fell in love with a human girl? Is this okay? Can a dragon and a human combine? A human's life is only 100 years, and you're an old man. Aren't you afraid that you'll be sad after your wife dies? Moreover, the body structure of you dragons is quite different from that of humans. Even if you can turn into a human, if there's a problem after the combination, it'll be troublesome." Garamandes snorted and said, "I knew you would say that. But, don't forget, I'm the great fire dragon king Garamandes. With my strength, can't I solve these problems? Since our dragon king can already change into a human, he can naturally adjust his own body structure to be exactly the same as a human's. As for the age you mentioned, that's even less of a problem. Think about it. With my strength, I'll train my woman well. As long as she's willing to work hard, it won't be difficult to reach the realm of gods. Her lifespan won't be a problem at all." Looking at Garamandes's serious face, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a little amused. "It seems that you're serious this time. But why do I remember that you like the bright dragon king, Anti-Demantetti?" Garamandes blushed. He said, "That's all in the past. Now that she already has a child, what's there to worry about? I'm not that stubborn. I have to think about my own happiness." Nian Bing chuckled and said, "Let's put it that way. This time the human girl is still very attractive to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so serious. I really want to see what kind of girl can make you so move. How do you want me to help you?" Garamandes seemed a little shy. He smiled bitterly and said, "How would I know how you can help me chase after her? Just tell me, I'll agree to any condition you have." Nian Bing chuckled and said, "You're the one who said it. You can't go back on your word when the time comes. All right, tell me how you two met and what happened. Then, I can give you some advice. Looking at you, you must have met with a lot of resistance from her." Garamandes smiled bitterly and said, "You're right. I'm the great fire dragon king, but I can't do anything about this girl. Nian Bing, you have to help me. Back then, I met her in Ice Snow City. The first time I saw her, I didn't have any special feelings. I just thought that this human girl was very beautiful. At that time, I saw a human man begging her. When I got closer, I heard that the man wanted her to give him a chance. The man's tone was very weak. He sounded like a coward. I thought it was very interesting, so I continued to listen. Guess what happened in the end? When the man got tired of the girl, she slapped him in the face on the street. I was stunned. So ruthless. That was a solid slap. Even a few of the man's teeth were knocked out. Then, she turned around and walked away as if she didn't do it. The man was lying on the ground for a long time before he crawled over. He was in a very sorry state. At that time, I became interested in this girl. When she hit people, she was very fierce." Nian Bing looked at Garamandes with a dumbfounded expression and said, "Boss, you're not a masochist, are you? You even like this kind of girl. I really admire you." Garamandes said with a little embarrassment, "I don't know what's wrong with me. Emotions can't be controlled by reason. I secretly followed her and found a chance to touch her. Guess what happened? She angrily shouted and asked me if I had eyes. Then, she raised her hand and hit me with a whip. You know that with the strength of my body, that whip can't hurt me at all. However, when have I, the great fire dragon king, ever suffered such humiliation? She hit me, and I even have the power to kill her. But I don't know why, in front of her, I just couldn't get angry. I just watched her leave. From then on, I tried to find a way to see her every day. I kept appearing in front of her, but she was like chasing away flies. Sigh, I have never suffered such a big setback in my life. Nianbing, you have to help me. Nianbing smiled bitterly and said, You're really special. As expected of a dragon, you're really different from what people think. What did you do every day when you saw her? Did you just look at her and let her hit you? Have you ever expressed anything to her? Yes. Of course, I stopped her a few times and said, Miss, how about we be friends? In the end, she immediately raised her hand and hit me. Luckily, I can withstand hit. If it was a normal human, they would have been injured by her. Nianbing was speechless in her heart. Good, you're really good. With the way you talk, how can she be friends with you? Garamandes said, How would I understand the rules of you humans? But I also told her other things. I asked her what I should do to make her like me. She said that she hated flies the most. She liked manly men. I asked her again, What does it mean to be manly? She said, The most important thing about manly is strength. If I can beat the person she appointed, then she will consider being friends with me. So, I went with her to a place called Warriors Guild and fought with some guild master there. Don't say, that old human man had some skills. He could barely be considered a swordsman. I had to punch him to send him flying. But I only sealed his dochi. I didn't hurt him, because we dragons can't casually hurt humans. But that girl was only stunned for a moment. Then, she asked me, You must know this guild master, right? You want to lie to me? Get out of here. I was wronged at that time. How could I casually know a human? But no matter how I explained, she didn't believe me. She even hit me a few times. Then, she turned around and angrily ran away. Then, I met Fatso. Because Demanteti's matter was urgent, I didn't dare to delay and rushed to the cold mountain range. That's how it is. Nianbing, teach me what I should do. Why did I clearly defeat that human? She still doesn't want to acknowledge me? Nianbing smiled bitterly. It's no wonder she doesn't acknowledge you. Boss, think about it. What kind of strength is it to defeat a swordsman with one punch? Who would have guessed that you are so terrifying? That girl naturally doesn't believe you are that strong. Of course, she would think that you and the Warriors Guild Master came together to lie to her. But you're really something. Who did the Warriors Guild Master provoke to provoke such a fiend like you? What's that girl's name? After all, I stayed in Ice Snow City for a while. Maybe I'll have some clues. When we get there, I'll help you think of a way. Chasing a girl isn't that easy. Actually, he himself didn't know how to chase a girl. Relying on his outstanding appearance and status as a magician, since he entered the continent, there were always girls around him. In the end, he chose Feng Nu. At that time, they were already in love with each other. There was no need to talk about chasing. Garamandes lowered his head and said, I also don't know her name. Nianbing, who was flying, almost fell from the sky. What? You chased after her for so long and you don't even know her name? You're really something. Boss, I really admire you from the bottom of my heart. Then, does she have any special characteristics? Garamandes thought for a moment and said, She likes to wear my favorite red clothes. Her family runs a restaurant. Also, the food she made at that time was really good. I seem to have heard other people talking about her mention some crazy girl. Silence. Nianbing stared blankly in front of her. The whistling cold wind kept blowing past her. Of course, she knew who Garamandes was talking about. Crazy girl, wasn't the crazy girl Xuejing? She never thought that the person Garamandes liked was actually Xuejing from Qingfeng Zhai. How could it be so coincidental? The bitter smile on Nianbing's face deepened. She sighed helplessly. After all these years, she still had to face what she had to face. Originally, she was most afraid of seeing Xuejing when she returned to Ice Snow City. However, with Garamandy's relationship, it was impossible not to. Garamandy saw that Nian Bing didn't say anything and couldn't help but ask anxiously, "What's wrong? Don't I have any hope at all?" Nian Bing shook her head and said, "I can't say for sure. However, I do know the girl you're talking about. Her name is Xuejing. She and I can be considered old friends." Garamandy said happily, "That's great. With you as the middleman, it'll be much easier for me to woo her." Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, "That's just what you think. Whether Xuejing will treat me as a friend or not is another matter. Do you want to hear the story between her and me? Speaking of which, I really let her down back then." Garamandy's frowned slightly and said, "You stinking brat, don't tell me you like her too? You should know that you can't covet your friend's wife." Nian Bing rolled his eyes and said, "Don't give me that. When I first met her, you were still sleeping somewhere. It's like this." Then, he started from when he left the Peach Blossom Forest and explained in detail how he entered Ice Snow City, how he joined the Cool Breeze sect, and everything that happened between him and Xuejing. F***ck, she's such a good girl and you actually lied to her and even chased her away. Nian Bing, I'm going to kill you." Garamandy's put on a false show of strength as he gestured at Nian Bing. Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, "Boss, you have to think about me too. I have a blood feud and I didn't know where my future was at that time. Even now, I still don't know. How can I accept her feelings? Moreover, Xuejing isn't my type. I can't force myself to accept someone I don't like. Since that's the case, I can't hold her back. It's definitely the right choice to cut off the thoughts in her heart. I say, boss, don't you like her? If I had accepted her back then, would you have had a chance? Although Xuejing's temper is a little bad, she's a good girl. If you really like her, I'll try my best to help you." Sigh, but it's a little difficult. I don't know if the grudge in her heart has disappeared after all this time. Garamandy smiled and said, "All right, what you said makes sense. Indeed, if you had taken her back then, I wouldn't have had a chance. This time, Nian Bing, you have to help me more. Tell me quickly, what does she like? Why did she fall in love with a brat like you? Is it because you're more handsome? But you don't seem to be as handsome as me." Nian Bing glared at Garamandy's and said, "No wonder there aren't any cows down there. They were all blown away by you. Are you very handsome? If you're handsome, you'll be beaten into a pig's head." "Bullshit, I'm a dragon. Don't compare me to a lowly creature like a pig." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Actually, I don't know what Xuejing likes. Maybe she liked me back then because of my culinary skills. If you're willing to take me as your teacher, I can teach you my culinary skills. As long as you can work in the Clear Wind sect, you'll have a chance." Garamandy's eyes lit up, but he quickly said dispiritedly, "Forget it, who knows how long it'll take to learn culinary skills. I can't wait. Nian Bing, help me think of an easier way." Nian Bing sighed and said, "I knew you wouldn't want to learn. Wait until we reach Ice Snow City. During this time, Xuejing must have changed a little. Who knows what kind of person she likes now." Garamandy's laughed and said, "Then I'll leave this matter to you. I'll definitely cooperate with you." Two figures cut through the sky and left the cold mountain range, heading north. Ice Snow City was still the same as before. The war in the south did not affect the second largest city in the Empire of the Far North. The city gate was open, and the passers-by were bustling with activity. It was a prosperous scene. Nian Bing and Garamandy's landed in a remote place 10 miles away. At this time, they had already arrived at the city gate. Seeing Ice Snow City again, Nian Bing couldn't help but sigh. More than a year ago, she was still an ordinary magician. But now, more than a year later, her magic was enough to contend with an expert of the Archmage level. Time passed so quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than a year had passed. She didn't know how Ling was doing after returning. Had she been waiting for her all this time? Let's go quickly. Let's go in quickly and eat at the Clearwind sect. Garamandes urged. These 2 days, he felt that Nian Bing was flying too slowly, so he personally flew with him across half of the Ice Moon Empire. When he thought that he would be able to see Xuejing soon, his heart couldn't help but heat up. Once the feelings that had been suppressed for 10,000 years exploded, it was even more scorching than a volcano. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, "There's no rush. It's not time to eat yet. We'll just walk over. Boss Garamandes, you must always remember that this is a place for humans. Don't casually show off your great abilities." Garamandes snorted and said, "All right, I know. Nian Bing, brat, let's go quickly." The two of them passed through the city gate and walked into the city. After living here for several months, Nian Bing was already very familiar with the city. Almost every place was the same as when he left. There weren't many changes. Those familiar shops, those familiar streets. Ling Nian Bing couldn't help but be immersed in it. He thought of the water goods ironware shop. There, he got his first divine sword. It was also there that he met his beloved Feng Nu. He didn't know how Feng Nu was doing. She should have already recognized her godmother. Perhaps they had already gone to the Feng people together. With his godmother by Feng Nu's side, and with Feng Nu's own strength, there was nothing to worry about in terms of safety. As they walked, suddenly there was the sound of hurried horse hooves from the side of the road. Nian Bing looked over and saw a group of knights in bright armor rushing towards the interior of Ice Snow City. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. When he lived in the city for so long, he didn't see any soldiers galloping in the city. What was going on? Did something happen in Ice Snow City? Thinking of this, he stopped a passerby and asked, "Hello, what was that group of knights doing just now? They are riding horses in the city so fast. Aren't they afraid of danger?" The passerby whispered, "Don't be nosy. Recently, Ice Snow City has not been peaceful. Since the treasurer ran away more than 2 months ago, Ice Snow City has been in chaos. Miss Wisegirl is the fiancée of His Highness the Fifth Prince. This time, she actually ran away secretly. When His Majesty found out, he was furious. For more than 2 months, he has been investigating all possible suspicious places in the city, hoping to find some clues. Our lord of the city is suffering. Sigh, I really don't understand why Miss Wisegirl ran away. Isn't it good to marry into the royal family?" Nian Bing's heart moved. So it was because of Luo Ro. It seemed that his godmother's action was really fast. With Luo Ro's intelligence, naturally, she wouldn't be caught. That was good. When she went to the Ottoman Empire, she would definitely have a better development under that specific political background. He didn't have to worry about her. This time, he had helped her to the end. When he had the chance to go to the Ottoman Empire in the future, he would probably see her there. The Ice Moon Empire lost a talent because of an inexplicable marriage. He didn't know if their king was a fool. When Garamandes heard the word Wisegirl, his eyes suddenly lit up. He said, "Wisegirl? Who is that? This title sounds very strange." His voice was very loud, and it immediately attracted the attention of the passers-by. The passers-by who were pulled by Nian Bing ran away quickly. Nian Bing pulled Garamandes to speed up and whispered, "Keep your voice down. The word Wisegirl should be taboo in the city now. I don't want any trouble." Originally, there were 3 great beauties in Ice Snow City. They were Wisegirl Luo Ro, Soft Girl Longling, and the crazy girl you like, Xuejing. I also know this Wisegirl. She ran away because she didn't want to comply with the political marriage. Now you understand. Okay, let's go. Don't you want to go to Qing Feng Zhai to eat? Garamandes's spirit was lifted. He tidied up his clothes and raised his head. He had a resolute appearance. Although he was not as handsome as Nian Bing, his temperament was easy to attract attention. Today, in order to see Xuejing, he used his energy to transform into a red warrior's suit with golden edges, which set off his strong dragon body and made him look even more mighty. Nian Bing wore a bamboo stick on his head. No matter which country he was in, only old people would have white hair. He didn't want to attract attention, so as soon as he landed from the sky, he combed his hair and covered it with a bamboo stick. When they came to a small road not far from Qingfengzhai, Nian Bing stopped and looked at the people passing by. He couldn't help but hesitate. After all, when he saw Xuejing, what should he say? He didn't know. He really didn't want to face the girl he had hurt. However, Garamandes's warmth made him have to face it. Qingfengzhai, a place Nian Bing was familiar with. Countless things had happened here. The Deshang Pavilion opposite Qingfengzhai had some changes. The beautiful waitresses in front of the door were gone, and only 2 male waiters were serving the guests. The business of Qingfengzhai was obviously much better than the Deshang Pavilion, and there were many more guests. It seemed that the change in strength caused by Nian Bing's appearance hadn't changed much until now. Let's go. We've been here for half a day. Nian Bing, I'm hungry. Let's go in and eat. Garamandes saw that Nian Bing's expression was a little strange. His eyes seemed to be a little blurred, but he didn't rush him. Nian Bing sighed in his heart. He had to face what he had to face. Since he was already here, there was no need to run away. Since it was his fault, this time he came to apologize to Xuejing. Thinking of this, he nodded and walked out of the small road with Garamandes, heading towards Qingfengzhai. The comfortable and elegant atmosphere of Qingfengzhai was still the same. As soon as he entered, Nian Bing felt a little more relaxed. The faint fragrance of flowers and plants made him feel relaxed and happy. It was indescribably comfortable. Garamandes looked around. He didn't find his target, so he walked to an empty table and sat down, muttering to himself, "Why isn't she here? Forget it, let's eat something first. Anyway, eating is a kind of enjoyment." When he came here, his heart calmed down a lot. With Nian Bing by his side to help him, it was much better than the confusion he felt when he was chasing after Xuejing. Nian Bing walked to Garamandes's side and was about to sit down when a voice suddenly sounded. "I'm sorry, gentlemen. This place is already reserved. Please change to another table." Nian Bing was stunned, but Garamandes had already stood up. They didn't want to cause trouble, and Garamandes didn't want to leave a bad impression on Xuejing. However, when they looked around, they found that the lobby of Qingfengzhai was already full. Only the table in front of them was empty. Nian Bing frowned and said, "Now that there's only this table, where should we sit? Is there room in the private room?" The waiter said politely, "I'm sorry, we're full now. I'm afraid you'll have to wait outside for a while. I'll get a number for you. When a guest checks out, I'll invite the 2 of you in." Garamandes said impatiently, "No, I'm tired. Anyway, there's no one here. Let's eat here first. Your restaurant is open for business. Can't you satisfy the needs of your customers?" The waiter smiled bitterly and said, "Sir, I'm really sorry, but this table was reserved by a distinguished guest. He has already paid a lot of money, so we can't make the decision. Please don't make things difficult for us, okay? Thank you." Nian Bing looked at the position of the table and suddenly understood. This table was the best position in the entire lobby. Not only was it close to the window, but it was also very elegant. From here, he could see the elegant decorations of the entire hall. None of the customers in Qingfeng restaurant made a ruckus, and this table was the quietest one. The surrounding customers all kept a certain distance from this table. Judging from the waiter's words, the person who reserved this table was probably very rich. How long has that guest reserved it? Since there's no more room, why don't we sit for a while? He didn't know this waiter, so he was obviously new. The waiter was stunned for a moment because when he saw Nian Bing's azure eyes, his mind suddenly went into a trance. Ever since Nian Bing's Tian Yen acupoint was opened, his spiritual power had reached a whole new level. Although he didn't deliberately release it, his eyes were not something that ordinary people could match. While the waiter was stunned, Nian Bing had already sat down next to Garamandes. The waiter reacted and immediately became anxious. The person who reserved this table was not someone he could afford to offend. Even the owner of Qing Feng Zhai couldn't afford to offend him. Just as he was about to continue persuading, a cold voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. Since these two gentlemen want to sit here, then sit down. Anyway, I'm a little bored eating alone. Nian Bing and Garamandes looked up at the same time and saw a 27 or 28-year-old youth wearing a blue robe walking towards their table. The youth looked somewhat familiar to Nian Bing. He was handsome, and although his voice was cold, there was a faint smile on his face. When he saw Nian Bing looking at him, Nian Bing nodded. At first glance, he looked very plain. Apart from his blue robe, there weren't many decorations. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that his blue robe was extremely exquisite. It definitely wasn't something that an ordinary tailor could make. Just the various patterns embroidered with thin silver threads on the robe required a great deal of craftsmanship. Moreover, Nian Bing could sense a trace of energy from the robe. It seemed to be the energy of ice. Nian Bing narrowed his eyes and quietly opened his celestial eye acupoint. Through his celestial eye acupoint, he could clearly see that every single silver line on the blue robe was emitting a faint aura of energy. Although the energy was very faint on the surface, it was completely contained within. This robe was definitely a treasure. Just the defense of the robe itself was equivalent to the defense of a fifth-tier spell. Nian Bing's heart was slightly moved. Who was this person? The value of this robe was so high. Looking at the noble temperament that he unintentionally revealed, he was definitely not an ordinary person. The waiter hurried to the front of the youth and respectfully bowed. "Sir, you've come." Look. The youth waved his hand and smiled. "It's all right. You can leave." After saying that, he walked to the table and sat down opposite Nian Bing. Nian Bing smiled slightly and politely said, "I'm really sorry for taking the seat you reserved." The youth smiled and said, "It's all right. Seeing that the two of you have an extraordinary bearing, it's my honor to be able to eat at the same table with the two of you. Feel free to order anything you like. I'll pay for this meal." Although he spoke politely, Nian Bing caught a glimmer of light in his eyes. Nian Bing felt that this person was very shrewd. It was obvious that he could tell that Garamandes and herself were not ordinary people. Otherwise, he would not be so polite. However, since the other party was so polite and wanted to treat them, he could not say much. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. Nian Bing said, "May I know your name?" The youth said, "No need to be so polite. My name is Yen Yun. You can just call me by my name. What about the two of you?" Garamandes looked at Yen Yun with a strange gaze. Just as he was about to speak, Nian Bing beat him to it. "I'm Nian Bing. This is my elder brother, Long Hor." Yen Yun nodded and called the waiter over. He did not ask Nian Bing and Garamandes and said to the waiter, "Serve the best dishes. I want to entertain my friends." The waiter agreed and hurriedly ran off. One had to know that the price of the Clear Wind restaurant was higher than that of the Great Success Pavilion. If all the best dishes were served, it would not be difficult to spend more than 100 gold coins on a meal. Seeing Yen Yun so carefree, Nian Bing was even more puzzled. Garamandes said indifferently, "Since you're willing to treat us, we won't be polite. However, my appetite is bigger than the average person. Since you're treating us, you'll have to let me eat until I'm full." Yen Yun smiled and said, "Of course. I don't dare to say anything else, but I still have the money to treat you to a meal. Brother Long, feel free to eat." A mischievous smile appeared in Garamandes's eyes. He said, "All right, then I won't be polite." The dishes were served very quickly. In fact, their table was already full before the guests who came earlier than them could serve their dishes. The surrounding guests did not raise any objections. Garamandes was not going to be polite and immediately started eating in an extremely indecent manner. Nian Bing ate slowly and chatted with Yen Yun as she ate. Through chatting, she realized that Yen Yun was extremely knowledgeable in all aspects. His casual words were always somewhat profound. Chapter 132. Yen Yun didn't feel anything at first, but as the third table of dishes entered Garamandes' stomach, his eyes began to show some surprise. One must know these 3 tables of dishes cost 300 gold coins. Seeing that Garamandes' speed didn't decrease at all, he couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Of course, it wasn't because of the money, but because of Garamandes' appetite. One must know, a table of sumptuous dishes was enough for 10 people to eat, but after 3 tables of dishes, Garamandes didn't change at all. Even his stomach didn't protrude at all. Nian Bing didn't eat fast, about the same amount as him. Through the conversation, he found that Nian Bing was very reserved. She would say a few words about ordinary things, but once it involved his and Garamandes' identity, she would immediately cover it up and not say a word more. Good, this is really delicious. Come, brother Yen Yun, let the waiter serve another table. Yen Yun smiled and nodded. He ordered the waiter to serve the same dishes and said, Big brother Long Hua's appetite really makes me envious. If I could eat as much as you, I might be able to grow a little stronger. Garamandes cleaned up the remaining dishes on the table and said vaguely, You cultivate ice-attributed do qi. No matter how much you eat, your body won't change. Unless you reach the level of swordsman, only then can you change your body's shape. However, it will take at least 10 years. Yen Yun was shocked. He had the strength of a pugilist, but Garamandes didn't even look at him. How could he not be shocked when he saw his current state? His heartbeat suddenly became a little more vigilant. He smiled and said, Yes, it will take another 10 years. Cultivation needs to be done step by step. Even if I rush it, it's useless. There aren't enough ingredients to serve a table, Mr. Yen. Please change the dishes. A calm voice sounded, without the courtesy of a waiter. Nian Bing and the other 2 looked in the direction of the voice. Garamandes' body suddenly trembled. He didn't even have time to eat because the person who spoke was Xuejing, the person he had been thinking about for a long time. Xuejing was still the same as before, but compared to the last time Nian Bing saw her, she was a bit thinner. Her red dress set off her full and graceful figure, as gorgeous and dazzling as a blooming rose. Of course, all roses have thorns. However, he had to admit that Xuejing was not inferior to Long Ling and Luo Ro when she was not angry. Yen Yun's eyes lit up and he hurriedly stood up and said, Miss Xue, hello. I'm really sorry about today. My friend here has eaten a little too much. If you don't have any more ingredients, just serve him some delicious food. Xuejing looked at Garamandes strangely. Because Nian Bing was wearing a bamboo hat, she couldn't see Nian Bing's appearance. He's your friend? She pointed at Garamandes. Yen Yun nodded and said with some surprise, Could it be that Miss Xue knows Big Brother Long Yen? That's great. We've only just met. Xuejing's face became a bit colder, and she took large strides to Garamandes' side. Who told you to come? Last time we chased you away, why did you come back like a fly? Our Cool Breeze restaurant doesn't welcome guests like you, get out. Garamandes was stunned for a moment, and a trace of bitterness appeared on his face. He sighed and said, Miss Xue, your Cool Breeze restaurant is open for business, how can you chase away guests? I know you don't have a good opinion of me. But I didn't come to bother you this time. No matter what, shouldn't you let me finish this meal before you leave? His meaning was very clear. Since I didn't provoke you, what right do you have to chase me out? Is your family running a restaurant? This move was taught to him by Nian Bing in advance, and then he used it himself. Garamandes had used this sorrowful ticket in order to win a trace of sympathy. Sure enough, his move was effective. Xuejing was stunned for a moment, and then she frowned and said, Then quickly leave after you're done eating. You're not allowed to bother me, do you hear me? Garamandes picked up a dish with his chopsticks and put it into his mouth. I'm only here to eat. I like the food here, that's all. Is that wrong? Miss Xue, aren't you being too overbearing? Nian Bing had told him before that girls like Xuejing hated flatterers the most. The more you obeyed her, the more she looked down on you. Xuejing had obviously never met Garamandes with such an attitude. Well, hello. I haven't seen your temper for a few days. Garamandes smiled and said, even if my temper is a little longer, I'm afraid it can't be compared to you, Mississippi, you. Xuejing was a straightforward person, and she didn't know what patience was. Her eyes flashed, and she raised her hand towards Garamandes. Her hand unexpectedly carried a faint red douqi, and it was obviously not a joke. Miss Shui, please be merciful. Blue douqi was emitted from Yen Yun's hand, and it carried an icy aura. He grabbed Xuejing's hand. Why is Miss Shui angry? My friend is only here to eat. If you have any grievances, please give me some face, how about it? Garamandes looked at Yen Yun grabbing Xuejing's hand, and his eyes almost spat fire. The trace of goodwill he had towards Yen Yun immediately disappeared. He snorted and stood up. Since this place doesn't want to keep us, we'll just leave. As he spoke, he directly walked towards Xuejing. He didn't avoid Xuejing at all, and directly bumped into her. Xuejing actually didn't struggle when Yen Yun grabbed her hand. When she saw Garamandes walking over, her other hand immediately slapped towards him with douqi, and the light of anger in her eyes rose again. Garamandes allowed Xuejing's palm to hit his body with a bang, and he didn't even move. Instead, it was Xuejing who took a step back. Under the guidance of the energy, Xuejing's body shook, and she immediately broke free from Yen Yun's grip. Yen Yun was shocked. He had some understanding of Xuejing's strength. Although she didn't use her full strength, it wasn't light. He knew that even if he had the treasured robe on him, he wouldn't dare to use his body to block Xuejing's palm. However, not only did Garamandes block it, he even forced Xuejing to take a step back. His strength was probably above his own. Xuejing glared at Garamandes. All right? You still dare to hit me? I'll kill you. A scorching aura rose around her body, and the douqi in her hand instantly became stronger. At this moment, a somewhat helpless voice sounded. Don't fight anymore. Xuejing, your temper still hasn't changed. Xuejing was stunned for a moment. She looked in the direction of the voice, only to see the person wearing the bamboo hat stand up and lift the bamboo hat a little. Her delicate body shook violently. Xuejing was immediately stunned, and the douqi that was rising naturally dispersed. She didn't know if it was because of excitement or anger, but her voice was trembling. You're back. Nian Bing sighed softly. Yes, I'm back. Big brother Long Hua is my friend, so please show mercy. Xuejing had already recovered from the shock of meeting Long Hua. Her eyes reddened. You still know to come back. You. Garamandes looked at Nian Bing strangely. Nian Bing was looking at Xuejing and said with a bitter smile, Xuejing, no matter what, we can still be considered friends. Can't I come back to see you and Uncle Shui? Xuejing's expression turned cold, and she suddenly turned to Garamandes. She asked, You like me a lot, don't you? Garamandes was stunned and subconsciously nodded, saying, Yes. If I didn't like you, why would I bother you? Xuejing nodded and said, All right, if you kill this person, I'll agree to be with you. As she said that, her hand pointed accurately at Nianbing's chest. Although she was angry, her mind was still clear. She knew that Garamandes was very strong. That was why she said such words. Garamandes was stunned and said, Do you hate him that much? I can do it to others, but Nianbing is my brother, I can't do it to him. Although I like you a lot, I definitely won't kill my brother for a woman. Nianbing, I think we should leave. He was somewhat disappointed in Xuejing. He sighed softly and turned to walk out. Nianbing glanced at Xuejing and followed Garamandes out. Xuejing screamed, You're not allowed to leave, none of you are allowed to leave. Yen Yun, if he doesn't do it, then kill this person for me. If you kill him, I'll agree to marry you. You don't have Luo Ro anymore, so haven't you been thinking about me? If you kill this person, I'll agree to anything you want. Yen Yun was stunned. He wasn't a hedonistic son, and Xuejing's words had already exposed his identity. If it was to kill someone for a woman, he would definitely do it, but he definitely wouldn't do it in front of so many people. He wanted to protect his reputation. Although Xuejing's appearance was very attractive to him, a woman's position could never compare to power in his heart. I'm sorry, Miss Xue. Although this is the first time I've met Brother Nianbing, I can't just casually attack him. What kind of enmity do you have between the two of you that you have to kill him? Nianbing looked at Yen Yun, and her heart suddenly jumped. So the person in front of her was actually the most likely successor to the throne of the Ice Moon Empire, the fifth prince. No wonder he could obtain the appreciation of the Emperor of the Ice Moon Empire. He really did have some ability. Xuejing said hatefully. He insulted my integrity. I've never hated someone as much as I hate him. Are you going to kill him or not? Fine, since none of you are going to do it, then I'll do it myself. As she spoke, she floated up and raised her hand to strike Nianbing. This time, Yen Yun didn't stop Xuejing, and Garamandes also stood to the side without saying anything. He allowed Xuejing's hand to strike Nianbing, which was filled with fighting energy. Nianbing stood there and looked calmly at Xuejing. Bang bang! Two loud sounds rang out, and the scorching aura of the fire-fighting energy spread out in all directions. Nianbing took 2 steps back, but didn't fall down. Xuejing's feelings were extremely complicated at this moment. Nianbing had opened her heart, and then rejected her. Even she herself didn't know whether she loved or hated Nianbing more. Tears had already made her eyes a little hazy. She crazily struck Nianbing again, and the fighting energy in the entire Cool Breeze restaurant's main hall soared, scaring the original diners and causing them to flee. Nianbing didn't dodge, and didn't attack Xuejing either. He allowed Xuejing's fighting energy to attack his body, and the fire-fighting energy crazily rushed into his chest, invading his meridians. However, the current Nianbing was no longer the same as before. He had the physique of a dragon. Not to mention Xuejing, even if a swordsman was here, it wouldn't be easy to hurt him. Banging sounds rang out incessantly. Finally, the panting Xuejing stopped, gasping for breath. Using all of her fighting energy consumed a lot of her energy, so she had no choice but to stop and rest. Nianbing opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of hot air. The magic in his body combined with the dragon's physique had completely dissolved Xuejing's fighting energy. A total of 116 palms. Xuejing, your anger should have subsided by now. I was wrong back then, so I apologize to you. After saying that, he bowed deeply to Xuejing. Xuejing choked with sobs. Apologize? How can the humiliation you gave me be resolved with just a word of apology? Nianbing, I hate you, 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 I hate you. With tears floating in the air, she turned around and ran, not even realizing that she had knocked over a table. Yen Yun looked somewhat helplessly at Nianbing and Garamandes. I'm really sorry, Miss Xue's temper is indeed a bit big. You too, I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. If there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely treat you two to a good meal. Whether it was Nianbing or Garamandes, both had left a deep impression on him. The two's super strong defense made Yen Yun somewhat vigilant. The Ice Moon Empire's king's health wasn't good and was currently very weak. Although he liked Yen Yun the most, Yen Yun still had 4 older brothers. Right now, the fight for the throne was at its most intense, so Yen Yun's heart was very guarded. After Yen Yun turned around and left, Garamandes bitterly smiled. Unfair, it's really unfair. Nianbing looked at him doubtfully. What's unfair about it? Could it be that you wanted those 100 or so palms to hit your body? Although Kaka's body's defense is very strong, after being hit so many times in the same place, it's still a bit numb now. Garamandes bitterly smiled. I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about Xuejing's condition. She told me to kill you, only saying that she wants to be with me. She told that pretty boy to kill you, but she wants to repay him with her body. It's really King unfair. Nian Bing sweated profusely in her heart. She rolled her eyes and said, "So you're saying that if she were to repay you with her body, you would kill me?" Garamandes mischievously smiled and said, "Why don't I go and ask her? If she agrees, then you can pretend to be dead. Wouldn't your older brother have a place to settle down?" Nian Bing unhappily snorted and said, "What place to settle down? What's the use of having her body but not her heart? If you want to pursue Miss Shui, you'll have to work harder." AI, looking at her appearance, why does it seem like she's even more hysterical than before? Could it be that the trauma I gave her was really that serious? At that time, the method I used was too ruthless. I really let her down. Garamandes patted Nian Bing's shoulder and said, "All right, let's go. We don't want her to come out and beat us again later. I really didn't expect that we brothers would become sandbags the moment we arrived at Ice Snow City. To think that I, the great Garamandes, would have such a day." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Isn't this what you want? If you're willing to be a sandbag, then who can stop you?" The two of them talked as they walked out. At this moment, a deep and resonant voice sounded. "Nian Bing." Nian Bing turned around and saw Shueji, who was dressed in green, walking out from the inner room. When he saw Nian Bing, his face immediately lit up with joy. His figure floated and he was already beside Nian Bing and Garamandes. "Nian Bing, you're back. That's great. I heard from my subordinates that Xuejing fought with you in front. It's really embarrassing." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Hello, Uncle Shui. Actually, it's nothing much. Consider it my compensation to her." Shueji sighed softly and said, "This daughter of mine is too stubborn. I know everything about the two of you, so I can't blame you. After all, how can you force matters of the heart? Let's go, it's almost time for me to rest and come back. This time, I must stay in the cool breeze study for a few more days." Nian Bing nodded and said, "That's good. I'll be bothering you then." He didn't want to stay here, but when he thought about how he could create some opportunities for Garamandes, he agreed. He had always felt guilty toward Xuejing. Garamandes could be said to be the person he trusted the most, and he just happened to like Xuejing. Nian Bing wanted to matchmake them from the bottom of his heart. One reason was to help Garamandes become a earth addict. Another reason was to give Xuejing an explanation. Garamandes had said that if Xuejing was willing to be with him, then she wouldn't be able to live without the lifespan of a human. Not only would he not be limited by a human's lifespan, his strength would also greatly increase with his help. This was a good thing. Moreover, Garamandes was definitely a dragon that she could entrust her life to. Under Shueji's lead, Nian Bing and Garamandes followed him to the inner hall of the Cool Breeze study. Shueji ordered the servants to make tea. After inviting Nian Bing to sit down, he said, "Nian Bing, you're in the limelight now." Nian Bing was stunned and said, "What limelight? How come I don't know?" Shueji said with some surprise, "You don't know? You've made a big name for our Ice Moon Empire. These days, that old guy Long Ji has been smiling from ear to ear every day." Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. Only then did she understand that Shueji was referring to her winning the championship in the new mage stronghold. She smiled and said, "The news spread fast. So you already know. Is my master doing well?" "Good, of course he's doing well. He's doing very well. Originally, because Luo Ro and her family left, His Majesty was furious. Not only our Ice Snow City suffered, but the entire Ice Moon Empire was also implicated. Their whereabouts were being tracked everywhere in the country. At this time, the news of you winning the championship of the new mage stronghold came back. This time, our Ice Moon Empire has made a big name on the continent. The first and second place are actually ours. In history, there has never been a country that has achieved such good result." His Majesty the King was very happy, and the storm caused by his wise daughter calmed down a lot. "Because of your relationship with your master, He was recognized by His Majesty the King, and the allocation of funds to your magicians' union was restored. Now, he has boundless glory. Under his leadership, the magicians' union has increased by dozens of magicians in just a short time. Moreover, your union's reputation is now much stronger than before. Although it can't be compared to the ice goddess in a short time, it is not as unvalued as before. Every time your master mentions you, his face is full of joy, and he says that he has chosen the right person. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Contributing to the union is what I should do. In fact, I won by a trick. In terms of strength, I was a little weaker than Qianhuan Bingyun at that time. What about you? Have you been well during this time? When I saw Xuejing just now, her guesses seemed to be unstable. Ai, it's all my fault." Xueji sighed and said, "Whether it's good or bad, you have to look at it from two sides. If we look at it from Clear Wind Sec's point of view, with your help, we have surpassed Great Accomplishment Pavilion. Later, you introduced Brother Ming's junior sister to us, greatly increasing the strength of our kitchen. Great Accomplishment Pavilion is no longer a threat. But if we look at it from Jing Er's point of view, then it's not so good. Ever since she snuck out and came back with you, she has been cultivating in the garden most of the time, and rarely goes out. That girl's heart is very heavy. Even I can't control her now. Nian Bing, don't worry, I don't blame you for this. Perhaps she will be able to calm down after a few more days. However, that girl's temper is really too bad. Whether or not she can get married in the future is a problem." Xueji sighed, his face full of helplessness. "Of course I can. I'm very willing to be with Miss Xuejing." Facing Xueji, who could become his father-in-law, Garmanandes couldn't wait to express his attitude. Xueji glanced at Garamandes and said, "I didn't expect you to know Nian Bing. I'm really sorry, but Jing doesn't have any feelings for you. It's best if you don't disturb her in the future." It was clear that he had seen Garamandes more than once, and he didn't have a good impression of Garamandes. Nian Bing couldn't bear to see Garamandes feel awkward, so she smiled and said, "Uncle Xue, I haven't had the time to introduce you. This is my big brother, Long Hua. His strength is far above mine. Big brother, this is Uncle Xue, you should know him." Garamandes hurriedly nodded and said, "I know him, of course I know him. In the past, when I came to visit Miss Xuejing, I saw Uncle a few times." He shamelessly called him Uncle. If Xueji knew that Long Hua was much older than him, who knew how many times older? He didn't know what Xueji would think. Nian Bing secretly laughed, but tried her best to maintain a calm expression. She said, "Uncle Xue, my big brother is actually a very good person." Xueji frowned and said, "He's actually your big brother. Nian Bing. You don't know, but this big brother of yours used to pester Jing all day long, and even set up the Clear Wind study. Jing Er's mood hasn't recovered recently, and I'm afraid it has something to do with him." Garamandes lowered his head. He said, "Actually, he didn't pester her all day long. It seemed to have only been a few months. Uncle Xue, I really like Xuejing. If I don't see her for a day, I miss her very much." It's no wonder that Xueji doesn't have a good impression of him. Back then, Xueji thought of many ways to stop him from pestering his daughter, such as magic seals, and sending people to guard her, but how could these tricks stop Garamandes? Xuejing would definitely see Garamandes's infatuated face every day. In her heart, Garamandes was definitely synonymous with a fly. Nian Bing knew that it wasn't easy to change Xueji and Xuejing's attitude towards Garamandes. She coughed and changed the topic. "Uncle Xue, just now when we were eating, we met someone called Yin Yun. Is he the fifth prince of the Ice Moon Empire?" Xueji's eyes revealed a trace of surprise, as if he was wondering how Nian Bing knew. "Yes, he is the fifth prince." Sigh, that girl Luo Ro's whole family suddenly left, causing a huge uproar. A year before the wedding, his fiancée had run away. To the fifth prince, this was a great humiliation. In order to investigate this matter, he personally came to Ice Snow City. Because he liked the elegance of this place, he had been eating here since the beginning. Originally, I wanted to arrange a private room for him, but he insisted on staying in the main hall. The fifth prince is a very good person. He doesn't have the air of a prince at all, and is very approachable. He is very outstanding in all aspects among all the princes. I think he is the most promising one. Garamandes shouted from the side, "Isn't that good? It's good that he is your son-in-law." Although his voice was very low, how could Shweji not hear it? If it was only Garamandes here, he would have already exploded. However, in front of Nienbing's, he pretended not to hear anything. Nienbing thought to herself, no matter how outstanding the fifth prince is, he is not a dragon. There was no way he could compare to a dragon of the dragon race. He wondered what Garamandes had done to make Snow and his daughter have such a bad impression of him. "Uncle Shwe, I want to go back to the guild to take a look. After leaving for so long, I should go back and take a look. Can I trouble you to arrange a place for my big brother Long to stay in the Breeze restaurant? Staying here is more comfortable than staying in the guild. At least it is more convenient to eat." Shweji laughed. "What's the problem? Are you worried about food? You're the best chef in the world." "That's right. I heard that when you were in the Hwarong Empire you participated in the Hwalong culinary competition, but you didn't participate in the final round, so you didn't qualify to participate in the God of Cookery competition, right?" Nienbing nodded. "The culinary world is full of talented people. Even if I participated in the final round, I don't have the confidence to win. I met someone who can use the yin-yang tai chi hand, and his culinary skills are not inferior to mine. I use magic to cook, but he uses battle chi to cook. His skills are very strong." Shweji smiled. "I have already heard about it. However, you will have a chance to compete with him. I want you to represent the Breeze restaurant in the next God of Cookery competition. Are you interested?" Nienbing's eyes lit up, of course. Back in the day, my master was the champion of the Five Realms Chef God's stronghold. Although I can't compare to my master, I still hope to participate in this top-notch cooking competition in the entire continent. Recently, I've made some new discoveries in the field of cooking, so I don't think I'll lose face in the competition. Can I? Of course. It is our Breeze restaurant's honor. With you participating, we will definitely get a good result this time. The requirements to participate in the God of Cookery competition are very strict. The current chairman of the God of Cookery competition is one of the 5 gods of cookery, the fierce God of Cookery. The committee is made up of dozens of famous culinary masters and gourmets. After the previous God of Cookery competition, they will evaluate the restaurants in the continent and select the qualified ones. In the end, there will be a few random spots for outstanding chefs who don't belong to the restaurant to participate in the competition, just like the top 3 in the Hwalong culinary competition. This time, our Breeze restaurant is lucky enough to win a spot over the Great Accomplishment Pavilion. Speaking of which, it is all thanks to you. Nienbing was shocked. Are you saying that even a restaurant like the Great Accomplishment Pavilion doesn't have a spot? Shweji nodded. He said, "Of course. Do you think anyone can participate in the God of Cookery competition? The current Chef Gods tournament is different from the one your teacher and the others had. It is much more meticulous, and all the procedures are very reasonable and rigorous. It is very difficult to obtain a spot in the tournament. Only a city of the size of our Ice Snow City can have a representative. Our Ice Moon Empire only has 2 spots. I heard that the entire Ottoman Empire only has 1 spot. In the Ice Moon Empire, other than our Breeze restaurant, the Crescent Moon restaurant in the capital of Ice Moon City has also won this honor. The competition will be held in the capital of the Longmu Empire in 3 months. At that time, I will select a few experts from our Breeze restaurant to accompany you." Nienbing had a deep understanding of the God of Cookery competition. Jia Ji had told her in detail about the rules of the God of Cookery competition. Back then, when Jia Ji was teaching her culinary skills, he had said that as a top chef, if he didn't win the God of Cookery competition, he would never be able to sit on the throne of the King of Cookery. The God of Cookery competition would gather all the top chefs in the continent. It was the best place to gain experience. Learning from other chefs was very important for improving one's culinary skills. Magic was something that Nian Bing had to master in order to take revenge and protect herself. Cooking, on the other hand, could be said to be her hobby. Ever since the day she left the Peach Blossom Forest, she swore that she would inherit Jia Ji's legacy and become the top chef in the continent of Yangon. The God of Cookery competition was finally going to begin. Nian Bing was filled with anticipation. Just as Shui Ji said, the rules of the God of Cookery competition were very strict, but at the same time, it was also very fair. The person who won the competition would have to display strong culinary skills in all aspects. The God of Cookery competition was divided into 5 rounds, which were cold dishes, hot dishes, soup, noodles, and special culinary skills. Every chef participating in the competition had to go through these 5 competitions, pass all the evaluations, and then enter the final round. Chapter 133. One of the biggest features of the God of Cookery tournament was that all the chefs competed together. However, only 10 people could enter the finals. Among these 10 people, 5 of them would be the champions of each of the 5 competitions. The other 5 would be chosen from those who had accumulated the most points in each of the 5 competitions, excluding the 5 champions. The final 10 people would then compete in the finals to determine their ranking. During the finals, the 10 finalists would also have to make cold dishes, hot dishes, soup, pastries, and special dishes. After a comprehensive evaluation, the points would determine the order of the finalists. There was a harsh condition. If the final winner did not win any of the 5 competitions, then although he was the winner, he would not be called the God of Cookery. After all, how could he be called the God of Cookery if he did not have an outstanding skill? Of course, the number of finalists was not necessarily 10. If the same person won 2 competitions, then the number of finalists would be reduced by 1, and so on. However, since the beginning of the God of Cookery tournament, no one had been able to win 5 competitions at the same time. If that was the case, then there would be no need to hold the finals. The first rule of the God of Cookery tournament was that if there was a cooking genius who could win 5 competitions at the same time, then the finals would be cancelled, and he would be crowned the Saint God of Cookery. Back then, when Ghost Chef Jia Ji was at his peak, he had only won 3 competitions. He had been working hard for the title of Saint God of Cookery, but after winning 5 competitions consecutively, he realized that no matter how hard he worked, he could not reach the peak in every aspect of cooking. He had to give up and become a judge. Nian Bing had inherited Jia Ji's wish. Aside from that, winning the title of Saint God of Cookery was his biggest goal. Of course, if even Jia Ji was not confident of doing it, then he was even less confident. Although his cooking skills had improved a lot after researching the 7-element feast, to say that he could win all 5 competitions, he had no confidence at all. Just that little Tian who could use the yin-yang harmony Tai Chi hands was the biggest obstacle in his path. The biggest difference between the God of Cookery tournament and the Dragon Challenge tournament was that although the God of Cookery tournament was participated by the head chef, the head chef could bring along 2 to 3 assistants to help, and the assistants could help the head chef with the cooking. Because the duration of each competition was very short, in a competition where the head chef was not good at, the assistants could play a key role. Of course, there was a limit to the number of assistants. They could only play a supporting role. The actual cooking had to be done by the head chef. He recalled everything about the God of Cooking tournament. Nian Bing's heart couldn't help but heat up. Clear Wind Fasting still had Ming Yuan and Ming Hui, the 2 martial siblings. If they worked together as her assistants, her chances of winning the championship would be very high. Uncle Shui, if I represent Clear Wind sect in the competition, then I only have one goal. Xueji took a sip of the tea that the servant had just brought over. He smiled and said, I wish you had that kind of strength. I don't think that needs to be questioned. I think Long Ji also misses you very much. You can go over there and take a look. I will arrange a place for you to stay. Nian Bing nodded and said to Garamandes, Big brother, you stay here first. I'll go to the Magician Union first. Garamandes glanced at Xueji. He nodded but didn't say anything. Xueji said, Nian Bing, tell Long Ji to come to my clear wind fasting tonight. I will hold a welcoming dinner for you. Garamandes couldn't help but ask, Then will Miss Xuejing come? Xueji frowned and said, Of course she will. How can the successor of my clear wind fasting not come? You're called Long Ho, right? I'm seriously warning you, don't bother my daughter again. For Nian Bing's sake, I can let you stay. But if you sneak into my daughter's room like before, you can blame me for being impolite. Nian Bing opened her eyes wide and looked at Garamandes, who was a little embarrassed. Sneaking into someone's room like that? No wonder Xueji's attitude towards him was so bad. Uncle Xue, I promise you on behalf of my big brother that he will never do such a thing again. Right, big brother Long? Nian Bing deliberately emphasized the last three words. Garamandes hurriedly nodded and said, Yes, I definitely won't. I was wrong in the past. In order to pursue Xuejing, the arrogant him had actually admitted his mistake. It was really hard on him. Xuejing sat on her bed in a daze. At this moment, her emotions had gradually calmed down. The anger in her heart had disappeared and was replaced by disappointment. Nian Bing, Garamandes and Yen Yun's faces kept replaying in her mind. The three of them gave her three completely different feelings. She had also asked herself before, did she really like Nian Bing? That man could be said to be relentless towards her. Back then, in Binglan City, he was clearly looking for an excuse to send her away. But why couldn't she forget him? What was so good about him? What did she like about him? Handsome looks, powerful magic, or exquisite culinary skills? Maybe all of them. But she hadn't been with him for a long time. When she saw him earlier, why was she so angry? Was it because of love that turned into hatred, or was it a psychological reaction from being rejected? Xuejing's heart was in a mess. Even she herself wasn't sure how she felt about Nian Bing. After Nian Bing, another two men appeared in her life. One was the pestering Garamandes and the other was the handsome and elegant fifth prince Yen Yun. Xuejing more or less had a good impression of Yen Yun. It wasn't because of his status, but more because of his outstanding appearance and ability. Towards Garamandes, she was more angry. During those days, he would appear in front of her punctually like a fly, and she didn't know how annoying he was. But 2 months ago, he suddenly left without any warning. She didn't know why, but she actually felt a little disappointed. During the days when she couldn't see him, that hateful red figure actually appeared in her mind frequently. If it wasn't for Nian Bing's appearance today, would she be happy? But that hateful fellow's attitude towards her seemed to have changed a little. He no longer bowed to her like before. Who exactly was he? His martial arts seemed to be very strong, and even her father couldn't figure out his strength. He had only attacked once, and that was against the Warriors' Guild Master. But that was too exaggerated. How was it possible to defeat a swordsman with a single punch? The appearance of the three men at the same time made Xuejing's heart even more confused. She shook her head forcefully and sighed secretly. She didn't know how she should choose. She didn't even know who was more important in her heart. But she was sure that the most hateful one was Nian Bing. He actually rejected her feelings. He even used that kind of place to leave on his own. No matter what, she couldn't possibly like him anymore. What was so great about him? Didn't he just know some magic? Thinking of Nian Bing, Xuejing couldn't help but clench her teeth in anger. Jing have you rested? Xueji's deep voice came from outside the house. Xuejing jumped in fright and quickly calmed herself down. Father! Dad, I haven't rested yet. Please come in. Xueji pushed open the door and entered. Turning around, his daughter, who looked a little haggard, said with heartache, "Silence, are you still unhappy? Although Nian Bing isn't bad, since he doesn't have you in his heart, why force him?" Xuejing snorted and said, "I won't feel sad for him. That fellow isn't worthy at all. Father, do you really intend to let Nian Bing represent our Clear Wind sect in the competition? Nian Bing won't be able to stay here in the future. At most, we can only borrow his strength to make a name for ourselves." Xueji sighed and said, "If I had a choice, of course I wouldn't let him represent us in the competition. Nian Bing is like an eagle soaring in the sky. No one can control him. You should be able to see that he's clearly different from before. Not only is his bearing more stable than before, his strength has also greatly improved." Xuejing nodded in agreement. Her 100 palms could completely shatter a huge rock, but Nian Bing, as a magician, was able to take it without suffering any injuries. This was too strange. Xueji said, "I've talked to your Uncle Ming. I asked him, if he represented the Clear Wind sect in the competition, would he be able to get a place? Guess what your Uncle Ming said? Your Uncle Ming said that he doesn't have the qualifications to participate in the God of Cookery competition. Even Ming Hui, who has already surpassed his master, would only be able to get in. Only with Nian Bing's culinary skills would he be able to get a good place in the competition." Xuejing said in shock, "Isn't Uncle Ming belittling himself too much? With his culinary skills, he should be able to get a place in the competition. At least, Uncle Ming's skills in cooked wheaten food are rarely surpassed. Why would he say such a thing?" Xueji sighed softly and said, "I've also carefully considered this matter. Actually, your Uncle Ming's words are very correct. No one knows their own strength better than he does. Our Clear Wind sect is indeed doing well in Ice Snow City. With the 2 senior siblings, Ming Yuan and Ming Hui, we were able to achieve this. However, looking at the entire continent, there are many talented people in the culinary world. This is not something we can imagine. Not to mention you, even I am a frog in a well. You've seen Nian Bing's culinary skills. How do you think he compares to Ming Yuan?" Although Xuejing hated Nian Bing, she would not belittle Nian Bing's culinary skills. After all, her memory of that moment was too clear. Nian Bing's culinary skills are indeed amazing, especially when he uses magic to cook. Xueji said, "When a person's culinary skills reach a certain level, it is very difficult to improve. Take your Uncle Ming for example. No matter how much he trains, he will never be able to reach Nian Bing's level. Nian Bing's use of magic to cook is indeed miraculous. However, his basic skills are also very solid. Not to mention other things, his mysterious ghost-carving godly knife is something that even I can't use, let alone a chef who doesn't know any martial arts. For an ordinary person to be able to train his hand speed so fast and so accurately, how much effort must he have put in? This time, since I've already decided, I won't change my mind. I will definitely let Nian Bing represent our Clear Wind sect in the God of Cookery tournament. You must always remember, don't let your personal grudges affect the overall situation. Nian Bing has a very good personality. If we become friends with him, it will be extremely beneficial for our Clear Wind sect's future development. Ice and Fire Chef, these 4 words aren't just for show. Jing although your intelligence isn't as good as Ro-er's, it's about the same. However, your flaw is that your temper is too irritable. If you can calm down sometimes, perhaps many things will change. Although Nian Bing looks gentle on the surface, I can easily feel the arrogance in his bones. He is like a piece of steel. If you are also a piece of steel, there won't be any good results if you meet force with force. Even if you can't develop a relationship, can't you just be friends? Having a friend like him is definitely a good thing for you. I've already agreed to let him and that brat called Long Hua temporarily stay with us. You have to know your limits. When Xueji said that Nian Bing and Long Hua were going to stay with the Clear Wind sect, Xuejing was shocked. Father, how can you let Long Hua stay with us? Haven't we been annoyed enough by him? Xueji smiled bitterly. It's different this time. He's here as Nian Bing's friend. For Nian Bing's sake, I can't drive him away no matter what. Long Hua has already promised not to harass you. Since you hate him, just ignore him. He's Nian Bing's brother. I don't think he'll cause trouble for Nian Bing. Sigh, that brat Long Hua has a dignified appearance and a manly temperament, but he's too filthy. He actually snuck into your room. No matter how strong he is, I firmly oppose you dating someone like him. Xuejing snorted and said, I want nothing more than to kill him. Why would I date him? However, I can see that his feelings for Nian Bing are very deep. Xueji said, since he's a guest, we can't be too negligent. Alright, you should rest first. Remember what I said just now. Don't make things difficult for Nian Bing. Xuejing nodded lightly and said, perhaps I've vented my anger after beating him up. I don't hate him as much anymore. For the sake of the Clear Wind sect, I'll control my temper. Nian Bing walked down the street in a relaxed manner. Everything that had happened in the Clear Wind sect didn't affect his mood. Facing Xuejing again and taking more than 100 palms, he felt much more relaxed. The guilt he had felt before had also been reduced. What made him even happier was that he had obtained the right to participate in the God of Cookery tournament. He had always had a good impression of the Clear Wind sect, so there was nothing wrong with representing them in the tournament. Even if he couldn't obtain the right to participate in the God of Cookery tournament this time, he would think of other ways. In the distance, he had already arrived at the familiar steeple building. A warm feeling rose up spontaneously. The gentle Ling kept flashing in his mind. He recalled the days when he was in the library. He was constantly learning magic knowledge every day, and Ling was taking care of him in Gamara. However, he still made her sad. Ling was such a good girl. How could he let her down? Thinking of Long Ling's teary eyes, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a sharp pain in his heart. Quickening his pace, Nian Bing quickly arrived at the entrance of the Magicians' Guild. The two magicians standing guard at the entrance looked much more spirited than before. Wearing neat beginner magicians' robes, they looked much stronger than before. Nian Bing had never seen these two magicians before. It was obvious that they had joined the Magicians' Guild not long ago. Hello, Jingwen. Are you a magician here to participate in the guild's guild? One of the magicians asked. Nian Bing shook his head. With a flash of light in his hand, he took out the token that symbolized his status as an elder. The two beginner deer magicians saw the token and hurriedly bowed. They respectfully said, Greetings to the elder. Elder, please enter. Then they stepped aside. Nian Bing was just about to walk in when a familiar voice sounded. Oh, who are you? A slender figure walked out from the guild. It was Shurjiu, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. Nian Bing used his hand to push up the bamboo hat on his head. He smiled and said, Big brother Shurjiu, don't you recognize me? The two beginner magicians were stunned when they saw Nian Bing's young and handsome appearance. They obviously didn't expect this elder to be so young. Shurjiu was also stunned when he saw Nian Bing. Nian Bing, you're back. His expression was a little complicated. However, the light in his eyes was kind. Let's go in together. Shurjiu stepped forward and patted Nian Bing's shoulder. He led him inside. After not seeing him for a long time, Shurjiu's temperament seemed to have changed. It wasn't just because of the increase in magic power. At the same time, Nian Bing could clearly feel that Shurjiu's aura seemed to be much calmer than before. As they walked, Shurjiu said to Nian Bing, thank you. Nian Bing smiled and said, I am a member of the guild. Increasing the glory of the guild is what I should do. Shurjiu shook his head and said, No. I'm not referring to this. I'm doing this for Ling. At that time, after you left, I discovered that there was something wrong with Ling. Her smile from before was gone. Seeing her become haggard day by day, I really felt bad. I had a sincere talk with her before I found out that it was you who stole her heart. Nian Bing, do you know? At that time, I wanted to tear you to pieces. However, Ling Er's words made me understand many things. You don't need to ask what she said to me. I can only tell you that I now see Ling Er as my most precious sister. Although my magic is not as good as yours, if you dare to bully her in the future, I won't let it go. Indeed, you are more suitable for her than I am. I'm not worthy of her. As he said this, he stopped and smiled at Nian Bing. Nian Bing looked at Sergio in a daze. After all, his change was too big. He couldn't accept it for a while. Big brother Sergio, alright, don't say anything. You just have to treat Ling Er well. That's enough. Let's go in. Teacher misses you very much. This time, we have done such a great service for the guild. We have finally received the recognition of the Ice Moon Empire. Today, we also have an important guest. Since you're back, you can meet him. You can meet Ling Er later. Nian Bing nodded. Out of etiquette, he had to meet Long Ji first. Hearing Sergio's words, Nian Bing felt much more relaxed. Although he wasn't afraid of Sergio, wouldn't it be better to be able to make friends? Moreover, he didn't have any real conflicts with Sergio. The two of them quickly entered the main building of the guild. Sergio brought Nian Bing to the hall on the second floor excitedly. Teacher, look who's back. Nian Bing followed Sergio upstairs. There were two people sitting on the sofa in the hall. Behind them, there was another person standing. He knew both of them. One of them was naturally the president of the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild, Wind Mage Long Ji. The other person was the Ice Moon Empire's fifth prince Yen Yun, whom he had met not long ago. Behind Yen Yun stood an old man wearing a deep blue robe. As soon as Nian Bing went upstairs, he felt the old man's eyes flash. Through his Heaven's Eye acupoint, he immediately felt that this old man was extraordinary. An expert, he was definitely an expert. Long Ji was talking to Yen Yun with a smile on his face. When he suddenly saw Nian Bing, he was stunned for a moment. Then, he didn't feel as happy as he had expected. Instead, he felt a bit awkward. Long Ji stood up and said, Nian Bing, you're finally back. Nian Bing glanced at Yen Yun, then bowed to Long Ji and said, Teacher. Long Ji coughed and said, Come, let me introduce you. There's no need to introduce, I've already met brother Nian Bing. Yen Yun took the initiative to stand up. He obviously also understood Nian Bing's identity. I never expected brother Nian Bing to be the genius magician who helped our Ice Moon Empire make a name for ourselves. The shock in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Previously, at the breeze room, he clearly saw Nian Bing use his body to take on more than 100 of Xuejing's palm strike. Could it be that he used magic to defend against those attacks? Nian Bing said, Greetings, Your Highness the Fifth Prince. Yen Yun raised his eyebrows. Oh, so brother Nian Bing already knows my identity. Actually, this identity thing was given to me by my father. We can just talk as equals. He was currently competing with the other two princes for the throne, so of course he desired talents the most. When he found out that Nian Bing was actually the champion of the Five Nations New Magician competition, his tone immediately became much more polite. Long Ji frowned slightly and looked at Nian Bing. So the two of you already know each other. That's great. Nian Bing, you just came back. It must have been hard on you. I will look for you later. Sergio, take Nian Bing to rest. Although Nian Bing felt strange, he didn't say anything. He also wanted to see Ling Er and didn't want to delay here. After all, in his opinion, Long Ji and Yen Yun's discussion was definitely related to politics and such. Those were things that he wasn't interested in. At this moment, Yen Yun's words set off a huge wave in Nian Bing's heart. President Long, since our matter has been settled, then I will take my leave first. It just so happens that I want to ask magician Nian Bing about the beset situation. Miss Ling Er and I will inform you as soon as possible after I go back and discuss with my father. What? You want to marry Ling Er? Shurjiu exclaimed. Long Ji said in a deep voice, Shurjiu, don't be unreasonable. He scolded Shurjiu. At the same time, he noticed that Nian Bing's face instantly turned cold. Yen Yun smiled and said, That's right. I have long heard that Miss Ling Er is gentle and pleasant. It is my honor to be able to marry Miss Ling Er. Nian Bing looked straight at Yen Yun and smiled indifferently. I'm really sorry. Your Highness, Fifth Prince, Ling Er is my fiancé. How can she marry you? Yen Yun was stunned. He couldn't help but look at Long Ji. Long Ji said in a flustered and exasperated manner, Nian Bing, don't talk nonsense. When did Ling Er become your fiancé? You go down first. Your Highness, this is just a misunderstanding. Please don't think too much. Yen Yun looked at Long Ji and then looked at Nian Bing. He frowned and said, I don't care if this is a misunderstanding or not. I still have to ask President Long to resolve this as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be hard to explain to my father. All right, take care of your own family matters. Yen Yun will take his leave. As he said this, he walked past Nian Bing and walked out. Just when Yen Yun was about to pass by Nian Bing, a sudden change occurred. A seven-colored radiance burst out from Nian Bing's body without any warning. Yen Yun's body seemed to have solidified and stopped in an instant. How could he compare to the innate domain that even an expert like the Dragon King could resist? 7 rays of light lit up at the same time. Magic blades with 7 different auras were placed on Yen Yun's vital points at the same time. In an instant, Yen Yun's body didn't dare to make the slightest movement. The intense killing intent from the Chi-Chi blade caused his heart to tremble. He couldn't even speak. When the blue-clothed old man saw that Yen Yun was suddenly restrained, he was immediately shocked. He staggered and rushed towards Nian Bing. A light flashed in Nian Bing's eyes. The radiance of the Chi-Chi blade brightened and a surging aura was released. Although he didn't say a single word, that old man Lan Qing suddenly stopped when he was 3 meters away from him. He didn't take a single step forward. Nian Bing released her Heaven's Eye domain very cleverly. It just happened to envelop him and the 5th Prince Yen Yun. She spat out word by word with an ice-cold voice. I don't care what your identity is, and I don't care who you are. Remember my words. If you dare to have any ideas about Ling Er again, then the next time we meet, your body will be turned into pieces. Also, go back and tell your old man that I have no interest in being an imperial chef. If you want to catch me, then I'll give you a suggestion. Ask the ice snow goddess to come. At the same time, the radiance disappeared as if nothing had happened. Yen Yun fell forward a few steps. His eyes were filled with shock. At that moment, he clearly felt that death was so close to him. Elder Lan Yong angrily roared. His body rushed towards Nian Bing as fast as lightning. Silver light burst out. It was swordsman's Saint Do Qi. If it was in the past, even if Nian Bing obtained the 7 magic blades, it would be very difficult for her to contend against swordsmen in such a close distance. However, she was no longer the Nian Bing of the past. Her gradual mastery of the ice and fire origin magic, as well as the opening of her Heaven's Eye acupoint, had already sent her to the top of the continent's mages. The distance of 3 meters suddenly became very far in front of Elder Lan Yong. His surroundings were completely covered by the 7-colored radiant. 7 shadows appeared in front of him. Each radiance was so real, yet so illusory. The 7 ghostly shadows crossed each other. Elder Lan Yong only felt that his body was numb. He couldn't even gather the Do Qi in his body. The 7-colored radiance disappeared once again. Nian Bing walked step by step in front of Elder Lan Yong, who was standing there in a daze. She said indifferently, "You're already so old. Why do you still want to work for others? I don't want to kill anyone, so you're lucky. I used 7 types of magic to seal your meridians. It will only be removed after a month. Take your master and leave." Long before Nian Bing went to the capital city, He had relied on the fusion of magic to fight to a draw with Elder Fongren, who was at the level of swordsman. Now that he had the Heaven's Eye domain, he didn't need to fear any warrior. When a mage's magic could predict the situation, it would be very difficult for a warrior of the same level to win. With the wonders of the Heaven's Eye domain and the 7 magic blades that could be used freely, how could a swordsman be Nian Bing's opponent? Although his victory was related to the surprise attack, at the same time, it also showed his powerful strength. Although Saint Doqi was strong. Wind, moon, net attack. However, in the Heaven's Eye domain, Nian Bing could clearly grasp the attributes of her opponent's Doqi. Under the effect of weakening the Doqi, she could seal it with magic that completely countered the opponent's Doqi. She could immediately achieve the best result. If a swordsman wanted to contend against Nian Bing, they had to first not be enveloped by his domain. Otherwise, they would have no chance. The blue-robed elder and Yen Yun left. Yen Yun had a very strange look in his eyes when he left, but Nian Bing could still easily detect the sinister aura coming from Yen Yun's body with the help of his heavenly eye acupoint. However, this was no longer important to him. In order to protect Ling Er, he didn't care who his enemy was. After enduring for so many years, he finally had the strength to stand on the mainland. He knew what Bai Ji should do. Nian Bing, what have you done? Do you know how important this opportunity is to the Union? Long Ji angrily shouted. Nian Bing turned to look at Long Ji. His gaze was somewhat cold as he nodded. Of course I know how important this is to the Union. To the Union, I'm only a chess piece that can be used. Perhaps even you didn't think that I would be able to take first place in the competition. With me as the champion, the Union's position in the Ice Moon Empire will be greatly increased. This opportunity is simply too hard to come by for someone like you who has been working hard to develop the Union. However, in the end, I'm only a chess piece. Even if my magic is powerful enough to bring more fame to the Union, I'm still only your disciple and a mage. Compared to the 5th prince who has a very good chance of inheriting the throne, what am I worth? If we can climb up to him and become the master of the Ice Moon Empire, the benefits to the Magician Union will naturally be great. Under the influence of nepotism, the Magician Union will very likely be able to catch up to the Ice God. After all, the Ice God isn't something that the Ice Moon Empire can completely control. This is a process of mutual benefit. As long as this political marriage is successful, then you will become the future father-in-law of the Emperor. The Magician Union will also be able to truly take root in the Ice Moon Empire. It might even become the strongest Magician Union on the continent. Am I right, my teacher? Chapter 134. Looking at Nian Bing's pure blue eyes, Long Ji felt weak in his heart. Indeed, in his heart, although Nian Bing was important, how could she compare to the powerful 5th prince? Today, when the 5th prince came to propose marriage, he was overjoyed. However, he never thought that Nian Bing would actually rush back when she was in danger. Furthermore, she almost killed the 5th prince with a strength that was far beyond his expectations. Shi Jiu didn't know what Nian Bing used. Perhaps the 5th prince and that blue-clothed elder didn't know, but as an archmage, how could he not recognize it? That was clearly the innate domain of a super magician. Moreover, it was an innate domain that possessed 7 different magical auras. Nian Bing's strength and unrestrained actions had already caused him to lose his mind. Offending the 5th prince was definitely a disaster for the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild. However, could he deal with this Nian Bing who brought him great honor? Nian Bing smiled indifferently and continued, "Have you thought about something? You only have one daughter, Ling Er. Could it be that you don't think about her happiness?" A cold light flashed in Long Ji's eyes as he said, "Nonsense. Being able to marry into the imperial family is the dream of many people. The 5th prince was born wise and talented. Ling Er will definitely be happy to be with him. Nian Bing, you have never expressed your feelings for Ling Er to me. What do you mean by doing this today?" Nian Bing sighed. Yes, I am sorry for Ling Er. I once let her down. However, the same thing will never happen again. Ling Er can only be mine. There is no doubt about this. Teacher, do you know why Miss Luo Ro left the Ice Moon Empire? You don't know. However, I know. Because she sees the future. Marrying into the imperial family is a good thing for power. However, for a girl, it is the beginning of a painful life. With Yen Yun's status, who knows how many wives and concubines he will have in the future? Even if Ling Er was favored for a while, would she be able to receive Yen Yun's love forever? The answer is no. Once you enter the palace, you are as deep as the ocean. You should know this. However, you deliberately ignored this question because of the power that the fifth prince could bring you. You are Ling Er's father, and she is your only daughter. Yes, Master, what Nianbing said makes sense. You should consider it carefully, Shijiu said from the side. Long Ji glanced at Shijiu. You can leave first. There's no need for you to say anything here. Shijiu still wanted to say something, but in the end, he held back. He turned and walked downstairs. Before he left, he gave Nianbing an encouraging look. After Shijiu left, Long Ji's voice became gentler. Nianbing, do you really like Ling Er? Nianbing nodded firmly and said, yes. One of the most important reasons I came back this time is to establish a relationship with Ling. I am sincere, and so is Ling Er. I hope you can entrust her to me. Long Ji said indifferently, however, if I remember correctly, you still have a grudge that you have yet to take revenge. The hatred of your parents is irreconcilable. Even if your strength has increased, can you be a match for the Ice Goddess? If I agree to let Ling Er follow you, and you die in the process of revenge, then how can my daughter be happy? Yes, you are right. In order to strengthen the union, I am willing to do anything. The two greatest wishes in my life are to become a god-descending master, and the other is to make the union the #1 union in the continent of magic. Ling Er is my daughter. Since young, she has always supported me. I think that I will not be an exception this time. Moreover, although what you said is possible, I believe that with Ling Er's character, it is not impossible to tie down the fifth prince's heart. Nianbing, don't forget that you are a member of the Magician Union. For the Union, I hope you can make some sacrifices. I have promised you before that in the near future, my position will be taken by you. This promise exists. This time, you have made such a great contribution to the Union, and you have such a strong backing. I am preparing to make you the Vice President of the Union. Nianbing became agitated and said loudly, Teacher, do you think I am a person who only cares about profits? I can solemnly tell you that I have never had any thoughts about power. The Union President is not important to me, but Ling Er is one of the most important people in my heart. You don't need to say any more. No matter what, I will not give up on Ling Er. These days I have thought it through. I am willing to give Ling Er a warm home. I cannot guarantee that I will be a good husband, but I can guarantee that I will love Ling Er wholeheartedly. I will never give up on such a good girl like Ling Er. He said these words resolutely, not leaving any leeway for his relationship with Long Ji. His meaning was very clear. He wanted to tell Long Ji that no matter what methods he used, he would never give up on Ling Er. Long Ji's gaze turned cold. So you are saying that you are determined to mess up this matter? Nianbing, Nianbing, don't forget that I am the president of the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Union, and Ling Er is my daughter. The corner of Nianbing's mouth rose, and a trace of disdain appeared in her eyes. Yes, you are Ling Er's father, but you are also a father who does not care about his daughter's happiness. I love Ling Er, and I will not allow anyone to hurt her. I don't want to see her cry anymore. I want a smile on Dao Zi's face every day. Teacher, this might be the last time I call you that. Back then, when I first entered the mainland, you gave me a lot of help. However, I also helped the Workers' Association earn some fame. It can be said that we don't owe each other anything. I don't want to continue being an elder of the Workers' Association. If you want to deal with me, then use whatever methods you have." As he spoke, he took out the elder's token from the ring of the end and threw it on the ground. His gaze met Long Ji's without any hesitation. "Your wings have hardened and you don't even want to acknowledge your teacher. Good, good, good. Then I want to see your ability. Since you can defeat a swordsman, let's see if you can defeat an archmage. As long as you kill me, there will naturally be no one to stop you." A green stream of air revolved around Long Ji's body, and the wind of freedom turned into a berserk wind that constantly wreaked havoc. Long Ji had immersed himself in wind magic for dozens of years, and his magic cultivation was so high that even the ice goddess priests were somewhat afraid of him. His strength was unquestionable. At this moment, a sobbing voice sounded. "No, father, don't fight with Nian Bing." A blue figure quickly ran up the stairs. It was the same blue magic robe, the same purple hair, a pair of big helpless eyes filled with panic, and her charming face was somewhat pale. Her body seemed to be thinner than before. It was Ro the maiden, Long Ling Ling. Nian Bing opened her mouth almost at the same time as Long Ji. Nian Bing took large strides forward, and without caring that Long Ji was beside him, he pulled Long Ling's delicate body into his embrace. Feeling that thin and weak delicate body, feeling Long Ling's rapid heartbeat, Nian Bing's eyes became somewhat blurry. This girl who had always silently loved him, who had always bitterly missed him, was now so moving in his eyes. Nian Bing knew that he would never, ever let Long Ling down again, never ever. Suddenly being hugged by Nian Bing, Long Ling couldn't help but be startled. But very quickly, that familiar and warm chest infected her heart. This sudden hug already proved everything to her. Finally, the longing in her heart returned. Tears of excitement flowed out of her eyes. She tightly hugged Nian Bing's waist. She was very afraid that all of this was just a dream. Nian Bing hugged Long Ling, letting her cry in his arms. He knew that at this time, letting Long Ling cry out all the grievances in her heart would be better for her body. His gaze fell on Long Ji, whose expression was uncertain, and he calmly looked at him. Long Ji secretly said in his heart, "Sure Jiao, this brat is really meddlesome. Why did he call Linger over?" After a while, Long Ling finally remembered what she came here for. She hurriedly struggled out of Nian Bing's arms and used her sleeves to wipe the tears on her face. "Father, you really want me to marry that fifth prince?" Long Ji looked at his tearful daughter, and his heart immediately softened. "Ling you also know that this is the best opportunity for our guild. Moreover, the fifth prince is a person with great foresight, good character, and looks that match you. What's wrong with that?" Long Ling looked at her father. Ever since she was young, she always knew how much her father had sacrificed for the Ice Moon Empire's magic guild. When she was young, she secretly swore that when she grew up, she would work hard to cultivate magic and strive to help her father. But now, on one side was her father, and on the other side was the man she loved deeply. They were both flesh and blood, so how could she choose? Nian Bing hugged Long Ling's waist from behind and said in a distressed voice, "Ling why did you lose weight again? Do you often not eat well?" He seemed to have forgotten the awkwardness in front of him and looked at Long Ling with a face full of concern. Feeling the warmth of Nian Bing's large hand, Long Ling's heart calmed down a little. She looked back at him, and the worry in her eyes deepened. If it wasn't for Nian Bing, she would have meekly agreed to her father's request. After all, this was her father's only hope. But after so many years of yearning for Nian Bing, she finally had hope. Her conflicted heart couldn't help but shed tears again. Looking at Long Ling's appearance, Nian Bing knew that he had no other choice. For Ling he couldn't fall out with Long Ji. Long Ji was too important in Long Ling's heart. He couldn't just take Ling and leave. That way, she would never be able to truly be happy. Thinking up to this point, Nian Bing made a decision. He looked at Long Ji and said, "I already understand your wish. If it was just for myself, I might do something extreme. But for Ling you are still my teacher. Your wish is to make the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild strong. Let's end it. Alright, I'll help you. I think what you want is not the support of the fifth prince, but the support of the future emperor of the Ice Moon Empire. If I can make the future emperor support you in developing the guild, I think you won't have to marry Ling to that fifth prince. Long Ji looked doubtfully at Nian Bing's wise and far-sighted eyes. His mind whirled. Suddenly, his eyes flashed and he said somewhat anxiously, You want to support the first prince or the second prince? Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, No, I'm not interested in those people I'm not familiar with. Teacher, let's make a bet. Let's bet that I'm the future emperor of the Ice Moon Empire. You can agree to the relationship between the fifth prince and Ling but you have to put forward a condition. Only when he becomes the emperor can he marry Ling. It's said that the Ice Moon Empire's emperor doesn't have many days left to live. I think the next emperor should be decided soon. Long Ji's breathing became a little hurried. Nian Bing, can you influence the political changes of the Ice Moon Empire by yourself? You have to understand that I won't give you any support in this matter. Although our union's position is a little stronger than before, it's only just started. Compared to the priests of the Ice Goddess, who can influence the entire political situation, we're still far too lacking. You're just a magic shooter who won a competition. You don't have any influence to speak of. Just based on your words, you want me to reject the fifth prince? Nian Bing said indifferently, Of course, for the sake of Ling you can't stand on the wrong side. But similarly, for the sake of Ling why don't you give me a chance? I've said it before. You can first agree to the marriage between the fifth prince and Ling and promise to fully support his ascension to the throne. But only when he truly ascends to the throne can you let Ling marry him. Perhaps doing this will cause the fifth prince to have some ill feelings towards you, but at the same time, if you succeed in fulfilling your promise, won't you be able to obtain even greater benefits? Teacher, this bet isn't a loss for you. Long Ji frowned slightly, his eyes flashing. He was hesitating. Long Ling looked at her father, then looked at her beloved man. Her current emotions were extremely complicated. She subconsciously held Nian Bing's hand tightly. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, Teacher, let's go to the testing area. I want to spar with you again. Long Ji was stunned. You want to compete with me in magic? Nian Bing nodded, That's right. I want to prove to you that I already have enough ability to protect Ling. In fact, if it wasn't for Ling feelings, I would have taken her away from here and never come back. In that case, you won't be able to answer to the fifth prince. I think, as long as I insist on taking Ling away, no one can stop me. Long Ji narrowed his eyes, a glint flashing through them. I haven't seen you in a year, Nian Bing, you've changed. Nian Bing said, Strength gives people confidence. Just based on your innate domain? Long Ji was somewhat disdainful. Although he was also shocked by Nian Bing's innate domain, it didn't represent everything. After all, a real battle was different from a competition. There were magic scrolls that could instantly cast magic. Moreover, Long Ji himself had been an archmage for many years. He couldn't believe that Nian Bing could defeat him with just the strength of an archmage. How do you know if you don't try? Nian Bing calmly looked at Long Ji. All right, as long as you can defeat me, I will agree to your conditions. Although our union is weak, it won't be difficult to protect Ling until the fifth prince ascends the throne. Finished speaking, he took the lead and walked out. Seeing her father go downstairs, Long Ling looked gratefully at Nian Bing. It's all because of me, Nian Bing. Nian Bing took Long Ling's hand and kissed it. Ling, don't think about anything, okay? Just leave everything to me. Since I want to be your man, the Lord must remove all your troubles. Unless I die, I won't let you marry anyone else. Alright, let's go. There was a strong restriction in the magic testing hall. Previously, Nian Bing's magic power was tested here. Nian Bing let Long Ling wait outside while she followed Long Ji into the hall. The familiar magic seal around him and the active magic elements made him enter a state of tranquility. He didn't like trouble, but for his beloved Long Ling, even if it was troublesome, he had to do it. He swore that abandoned wisdom would make Long Ling cry because of him again. Long Ji stood in the middle of the tree, waiting for Nian Bing's arrival. A faint green light constantly surrounded his body and flickered. In his hand there were already 3 magic scrolls. Although he knew that Nian Bing's magic power was not as good as his, he didn't dare to be careless with the advantage of an innate domain. After all, it was rare to see a magician with an innate domain. Even he had only heard of it. Before he figured out the ability of Nian Bing's innate domain, he had to be careful. Nian Bing walked until she was 10 feet away from Long Ji and stopped. The space ring on her left hand that Long Ji gave her flashed, and the bamboo hat on her head was taken back. Her long white hair floated down and draped over her shoulders. Seeing Nian Bing's white hair, Long Ji couldn't help but be stunned. Suddenly, he seemed to understand something and said in shock, "Nian Bing, you actually used the magic I taught you?" Nian Bing nodded and said, "That's right, I've used it. I had no choice but to curse my own life in exchange for greater strength for my friends. You don't have to be surprised, my life force has completely returned to normal. It's just that this hair will never return to its original state. Since leaving Ice Snow City, I have experienced many things. Some things, even I still can't figure out." He was naturally referring to his fusion with the little dragon king, Oscar. Oscar was still sleeping in his heart. A strange energy protected all his internal organs, including his heart. His dragon body was already very strong, and with the addition of Oscar's energy, his body's defense was not inferior to that of a swordsman. Long Ji smiled indifferently and said, "Good, I want to see what you have learned these days. You actually dared to challenge your own teacher." The green radiance instantly became even more powerful, and the overly condensed wind element let out a humming sound. Nian Bing didn't move and only looked at Long Ji calmly. She knew that as her teacher, Long Ji would definitely not make the first move. With a twist of her finger, an icicle floated out. Immediately after, in a weak silver light, the icicle disappeared. When Long Ji was stunned, the icicle suddenly appeared in front of him. The green light flashed and instantly accelerated, and in the blink of an eye, it was in front of his chest. Long Ji was shocked. The green light stirred in front of his chest, shattering the icicle. However, he found that his body was already covered in cold sweat. Although he knew that Nian Bing was very strong in magic control, he didn't expect that he was strong to this extent. A simple icicle from his hand could produce such a strange attack. The previous silver and green light clearly had the aura of space magic and wind magic. Before leaving the cold ridge, Nian Bing had deliberately and seriously exchanged pointers with several Dragon King. With the battle with the Lich Evil Moon, his understanding of magic had deepened, especially after he could activate the camouflage magic without using the 7 magic knives. He had reached a new height in the control of the 7 elements magic. More importantly, after his rebirth, when all his energy was stable, he was no longer a sorcerer, but the first all-element sorcerer in the history of Yangon. Perhaps, in terms of magic power of a single element, he was not as good as Long Ji, who had been immersed in magic for many years. However, he had the 7 elements magic based on the same origin of ice and fire. Nian Bing acted as if she had done nothing. She looked calmly at Long Ji and said, "Teacher, we can officially begin." Long Ji's heart twitched. He muttered a few spells, and a wind wall with strong wind suddenly appeared in front of him. Nian Bing's sneak attack with teleportation and wind acceleration had raised his vigilance. Nian Bing understood that if she wanted Long Ji to have confidence in her, then she must first let him have confidence in her own strength. With a 7-colored light, the sky eye field floated out and surrounded Nian Bing's body. 7 phantoms appeared in front of him. These 7 shadow puppet were not instantly summoned by Nian Bing, but by Nian Bing. Since she had a basic understanding of the abilities of the 7 magic knives, Nian Bing had used her understanding of the magic array to attach the 7 shadow puppets to the 7 magic knives. Among the 7 shadow puppets, the most powerful ones were the 2 with the strongest magic foundation, ice and fire. However, the most mysterious one was the black shadow puppet that had absorbed part of the vampire queen's dark magic power. Now, even Nian Bing was a little unclear about the extent of the ability of her black puppet. Teacher, use your strongest magic. You only have one chance. Although Nian Bing's tone was calm, it gave Long Ji a strange feeling. It was as if he was the teacher now. Anger surged in his heart, and Long Ji sneered. Nian Bing, although your wings have hardened, your vision is also short-sighted. Very well, I will let you see the true strength of your teacher. The whole room suddenly distorted, and in the midst of the distortion, the hall suddenly lit up and was completely dyed in green light. A magic staff appeared in Long Ji's hand. The tip of the staff was in the shape of ribbons and was inlaid with 3 green gems. Nian Bing naturally recognized the gems, because they were the same wind chant stones that were on her proud heaven blade. She was shocked and immediately opened her Tian Yen acupoint. All the changes of energy in her Tian Yen acupoint became very clear. Nian Bing discovered through observation. Although the gems on the magic staff were also wind chant stones, the quality was slightly worse than the one on her proud heaven blade. But even so, the wind elemental aura emitted from the magic staff became denser than in the grass hall. Long Ji's chanting voice became very low, but it was very rhythmic. It faintly matched the whistling of the wind in the hall. Of course, he didn't know that this was the special chanting method that Long Ji relied on to become famous, the wind chant language. Relying on the effects of the wind chant language, when he used magic, the chanting time of the incantation would be reduced by 1/3. For a powerful magus, reducing the chanting time of the incantation was definitely a sign of increasing strength. Countless twisting wind blades danced in the air under the effect of the green light. Nian Bing could no longer see Long Ji's figure. However, she could clearly feel Long Ji's position. However, that place had already become the center of the storm. What a strong magic power! Nian Bing couldn't help but be shocked. Although she had also entered the realm of Magus, her magic power was still much weaker than Long Ji's. They were both Magus. There was also a difference in strength. Nian Bing didn't make any movements. He was waiting for Long Ji to raise his aura to the limit. The 7 shadow puppets that he had prepared beforehand were his greatest advantage. With these 7 shadow puppets, no matter if it was attack or defense, he would have the advantage. Countless green wind blades gathered to form a long river of wind blades. Following a direction, they formed a beautiful arc and slashed towards Nian Bing. Nian Bing didn't move. Of course, he knew that this was only Long Ji's first attack. He wanted to test how strong the defense of his innate domain was. The reason why he only released 1 foot of innate domain at the beginning wasn't because Nian Bing looked down on Long Ji. Instead, it was because he valued Long Ji. The power of an innate domain was greatly related to its density. The smaller the area released, the greater the density and power under control. The lack of attack was the biggest flaw of the Sky's Eye domain. Although it was similar, this was also its biggest advantage. Without attack, under the effect of defense and amplification, the Sky's Eye domain far surpassed other innate domains. At least 10 green wind blades rushed into the 1-foot radius of the domain. With Archmage Long Ji's strength, the wind blades he released were naturally not as simple as ordinary wind blades. Each wind blade had the attack power of a spell of the 3rd step or above. In an instant, dozens of spells of the 3rd step attacked. Especially when it was a single target attack, it definitely had the power of a spell of the 6th step or above. However, when these spells of the 3rd step entered the Sky's Eye domain, they melted like snow. The 7-colored halo constantly fluctuated. Within it, the green light flickered. Every wind blade's attack that entered the domain was immediately converted into wind energy. Not only did it not cause any damage, it was instead used by Nianbing. Nianbing's Sky's Eye domain naturally couldn't absorb too much wind energy, but the wind puppet could. Its original light didn't stand out, but after using its innate aura to absorb the several hundred wind blades' energy from Nianbing, the green energy body became a lot more substantial. Without the absolute energy that surpassed the Sky's Eye domain, the attack would only be converted by the Sky's Eye domain. This was the advantage of the Sky's Eye domain. To weaken and amplify at the same time, there must be no deviation in the control of the energy. Under the effect of the Sky's Eye point, Nianbing did it. The wind blades didn't continue to attack. A huge green figure loomed between Nianbing and Long Zhi. Nianbing's heart skipped a beat. She immediately recognized that this was the summoning of Aeolus. This was the magician's union after all. Long Zhi didn't dare to use all his strength to cast an 11th step forbidden spell. Otherwise, when the energy reached a point where even he couldn't control it, it would inevitably cause great damage to the magician's union. Thus, he had to be careful. A dot of golden light appeared on the forehead of the huge green figure. As the light flickered, streaks of green lightning flashed, and the huge figure gradually became clearer. Although the face was blurry, Aeolus's aura brought about great pressure. Nianbing had no choice but to take a few steps back and release her Sky's Eye domain to resist this great pressure. He couldn't help but admire Long Zhi. He knew that with his own ability, it was impossible for him to cast a 10th step spell so quickly. Long Zhi lived up to his reputation as an archmage for many years. His application of wind magic had already reached a critical point. He only needed to make one final breakthrough to enter the realm of a God's Descent Master. Unfortunately, he wasn't a God's Descent Master yet. Facing the completion of the 10th step spell, Nianbing didn't dare to wait any longer. Her Sky's Eye domain continued to expand, enveloping the 7 shadow puppets in an instant. The amplification effect was pushed to the limit. She raised her hands in front of her and completely opened her eye acupoint. The light between her eyebrows instantly bloomed. 7 blades in one Sky's Eye slash. The 7 shadow puppets instantly lined up in a row and raised their 7 magic blades. The one at the front was the God of Flame's Cry Righteous Yang Saber, followed by the Morning Dew Saber, Proud Heaven Saber, Longevity Saber, 4 Stars Saber, Holy Radiance Saber, and Demon Devouring Saber. 7 different lights condensed at one point, and the 7 shadow puppets made the same movement. The Sky's Eye slash didn't release a single blade of light, but condensed into a 7-colored ball of light. The ball of light was extremely strange. It wasn't made up of 7 different colors, but constantly flashed. Every time it flashed, it would change into a different kind of light. The ball of light was only the size of a fist, and under the identification of the Sky's Eye acupoint, it accurately locked onto the forehead of Aeolus that Long Zhi had summoned. He knew that that was the strongest point of Aeolus, and at the same time, the most important point of Aeolus. With the Sky's Eye acupoint fully opened, Nianbing's spiritual power reached an unprecedented level. Ice and fire were her strong points, and with the amplification of the shadow puppets and wind element shadow puppets, her power had already far surpassed the level when she faced the Earth Dragon King, Fatso. The ball of light released by the Sky's Eye slash was much smaller than last time, but the speed of the 7-colored light was more than twice as fast. Chapter 135. This time, they didn't disappear after releasing the Heaven's Eye slash. This was Nianbing's improvement. After the 7 shadow puppets released their attacks, he immediately replenished them with 7 strands of Xiantian Qi, and controlled them to absorb the surrounding Xiantian Qi with their own Xiantian Qi. The speed of one person absorbing Xiantian Qi could never be compared to 8 people. Ever since he obtained the Xiantian domain, not only did he not slack off because of the increase in strength, he worked even harder every day. He even put aside his favorite cooking skills and devoted himself to magic cultivation. Every day, other than the things that were necessary, he would spend 70% of his remaining time on magic cultivation. Every day, other than the things that were necessary, he would spend 70% of his remaining time on magic cultivation. Every day, other than the things that were necessary, he would spend 70% of his remaining time on magic cultivation. Every day, other than the things that were necessary, he would spend 70% of his remaining time on magic cultivation. Every day, other than the things that were necessary, he would spend 70% of his remaining time on magic cultivation. Every day, other than the things that were necessary, he would spend 70% of his remaining time on magic cultivation. Every day, other than the things that were necessary, he would spend 70% of his remaining time on magic cultivation. The closer his strength was to the target of the snow goddess priestess, the more diligent he became. Qianhuan Bingyun said that her parents were not dead. If she wanted to save them, she could only rely on herself. Everyone could only completely trust themselves. The 7 magical elements quickly formed a delicate balance under the control of the mental force emitted from the celestial eye acupoint. In this balance, the 7 magical elements existed in a mutually reinforcing manner. Under the effect of complementing each other, the magical power was instantly released to the maximum. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived in front of Aeolus that Long Zhi had summoned. Wind magic was released to the strongest level in an instant. That huge figure shot out a bolt of cyan lightning, which suddenly struck Nian Bing's Heaven's Eye Slash. However, the strength of the Heaven's Eye Slash lay in the fact that it was a small Heaven's Eye domain. Although it wasn't large in size, the concentrated energy within it was exceptionally terrifying. The speed of the lightning was even faster than Nian Bing's thoughts. He didn't have time to control the Heaven's Eye Slash to dodge, but the Heaven's Eye Slash's tyrannical nature wasn't something that the green lightning could destroy. Long Ling was anxiously waiting outside. Although this hall was specially used to test the level of a magician, she could still clearly feel the surging magic elements inside. Just as she was at a loss, a familiar call suddenly sounded from the bottom of her heart. Ling back off. The voice belonged to Nian Bing's. Long Ling didn't know why Nian Bing's voice would appear in her mind, but with her trust in Nian Bing, she didn't hesitate and immediately ran away. Just as Long Ling ran a few dozen meters, the magic seal covering the entire testing hall collapsed. Boom! An intense 7-colored brilliance surrounded a cyan light and soared into the sky. The most peculiar thing was that the clouds above the Magician Union were disappearing in large patches, causing the somewhat dark sky to turn azure blue. Sunlight shone on the earth, enveloping the entire Magician Union. In the violent explosion, the entire magic hall disappeared in an instant, and the 2 buildings connected to the hall collapsed. When the turbulent dust came into contact with the 7-colored light beam, it also disappeared. Long Ling subconsciously released a 6th-tier magic scroll that Nian Bing had given her. She didn't want to face the huge shock wave head-on, and used the momentum to float away. Even so, the huge pressure almost made her suffocate. The sudden energy was really too huge. Fortunately, this energy was completely upward, otherwise, it wouldn't be impossible to destroy the entire Magician Union. The sudden appearance of the strange phenomenon immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the Ice Eye City. Everyone's eyes turned to the Magic Guild of the Ice Eye Empire. It was not until the next day that they heard an explanation from the Magic Guild that the explosion was caused by a magic experiment. Of course, this explanation was very far-fetched, but although the explanation was far-fetched, that huge amount of energy was indeed there. Some people immediately re-evaluated the strength of the Magician Union. That kind of energy fluctuation was definitely at the level of a forbidden spell. When the energy exploded, it produced 7 types of magic elements, and it didn't destroy the Magician Union. This was definitely not an effect that 7 sorcerers could produce. Everyone knew that the Ice Moon Empire's magician union only had one sorcerer. However, this sudden explosion that could cause a change in the weather made the magician union even more mysterious in people's hearts. Especially with the recent performance of the representative of the Ice Moon Empire's magician union in the Five Nations Emerging Magician Competition, it naturally made some people think of it. Everything returned to silence. Dozens of mages ran out of the surrounding buildings. The two buildings on either side of the testing hall were originally magic laboratories. Recently, due to the funding from the Ice Moon Empire, they were preparing to renovate them. The things inside had been moved out, so although the explosion was intense, it didn't cause any casualties. Only these three buildings were damaged. Nian Bing still looked the same as before. His long white hair draped over his shoulders and swayed gently. The 7 shadow puppets each held a magic blade in their hands as they circled around him. Under the coverage of the Heaven's Eye domain, these shadow puppets that were constantly moving around could only be seen as blurry illusions. Long Ji also didn't suffer any injuries. He stood there and looked at Nian Bing, who was not far in front of him, from time to time. Everything around them disappeared, even the ground under their feet turned into fine powder. The huge amount of magic energy raged and scattered in all directions. The explosion of the two forces of energy was more powerful than a forbidden spell. Long Ji was very clear that at the last moment, Nian Bing used an unbelievably huge amount of mental strength to change the direction of the explosion. This was why the Magician Union didn't suffer irreparable damage. Ah, Nian Bing, you're back? As a senior elder of the Union, Ritu was pleasantly surprised when he saw Nian Bing. Nian Bing looked at Ritu, who walked to her side and smiled. Hello, Teacher Ritu. I just came back not long ago. Teacher wants to test the level of my magic recently. Teacher also said that due to the expansion of our union, this testing hall should be rebuilt. To avoid the trouble of dismantling it, we might as well use magic to tear it down. Teacher, I'm right? Long Ji coughed, resisting the constant feeling of weakness. He walked to Nian Bing's side and nodded. Indeed, Elder Ritu. From now on, I appoint Nian Bing as the vice president of the union. His strength has already reached the level of an archmage. I think the position of vice president is very suitable for him. Please prepare a new magic robe for him and prepare a corresponding badge. I'm a bit tired, so I'll go rest for a while. After saying that, he passed between Nian Bing and Ritu, heading towards his own resting place. He didn't look at Nian Bing, and didn't even say a word to her. But Nian Bing knew that Long Ji had already fulfilled his bet with her. Long Ji was still unable to calm down from the shock in his heart. He only had one word to describe Nian Bing's strength: unfathomable. Previously, when he had used his fastest speed to summon Aeolus, it had collided with that unremarkable ball of light that Nian Bing had sent out. He immediately discovered that the explosive force of the collision was beyond his control. At the critical moment, he didn't even hesitate to tear open a defensive magic scroll of the 9th step to protect his body. It must be known that magic scrolls of the 9th step were already a special kind of magic scroll that could be seen on the market. Although magic scrolls were made from magic crystal powder, there was a limit to the amount of magic it could withstand. Even if one had the strength to make magic scrolls of the 9th step and above, they would require special materials. It also required extremely special materials to make the white scroll. Only a few people in the entire continent knew how to make this kind of white scroll. The value of a magic scroll of the 9th step was already equivalent to 100 gold coins. However, when Long Ji tore open the scroll to protect himself, he was shocked to discover that Nian Bing's body was emitting a layer of strange light. It was a layer of white radiance, but within the white radiance there were some gray streams of air. The radiance was instantly injected into the center of the explosion, and a strange pattern appeared on his forehead. Immediately after, the pattern became as bright as the sun. The huge explosive force that was supposed to spread out unexpectedly changed from spreading to rushing upwards after he injected this energy, and the energy rose in an instant. This saved the Magicians' Guild. However, when the huge explosive force rose, Long Ji was shocked to discover that the huge explosive force had sucked away most of his magic. At this time, his strength was already less than 30% of his peak state. On the other hand, Nian Bing looked as if nothing had happened. The magic that Nian Bing used was something that he had never seen before, but he was very clear that Nian Bing's unfathomable strength was definitely above that of an archmage. In fact, Nian Bing was not feeling well at the moment. His sense of weakness was even stronger than Long Ji's. When the explosion was about to happen, he immediately felt that the surrounding seal could not contain the explosive force, and hurriedly reacted as quickly as possible. Through a full understanding of spiritual force and the soul, he called out to Long Ling, who was outside. At the same time, he used his celestial eye acupoint to maximize his spiritual force, gathering this forbidden spell-level explosion and soaring into the sky. Just when his spiritual force was almost unable to support it, he was shocked to find that a strange energy came from his chest, fusing into his celestial eye acupoint, and actually completed the originally impossible task. After all, he had just entered the realm of Archmage not long ago. No matter how strong his fusion of magic was, his spiritual force could not be taken advantage of. Nian Bing knew that it was Oscar who had helped him this time. Oscar's strange energy seemed to be very beneficial to his body. At the moment of the explosion, no one, including Long Ji, noticed that when his spiritual force was under great pressure and the huge explosive force, a layer of strange gray scales had appeared on Nian Bing's body. When the explosion was over, the layer of gray scales quietly disappeared. Li Hua looked in shock at the departing Long Ji, then turned back to look at Nian Bing. Archmage. In just a year, Nian Bing had reached the realm of Archmage. He had never heard of anyone who could reach this level at such a young age. To him, this was all too inconceivable, but it was all the truth. Nian Bing, what happened to your hair? Why did it turn white? Long Ling no longer cared about the results of the competition. She was most concerned about the changes in Nian Bing's appearance. Perhaps even an elder of the Union like Li Hua did not know what was going on, but she, who had also learned the curse of life, deeply understood where Nian Bing's change came from. However, Nian Bing's appearance had not aged. Even so, her heartbeat had doubled. Nian Bing took Long Ling's small hand and smiled. Don't worry, I'm fine. It's only because I had a breakthrough in my magic cultivation that my hair became like this. I'm really sorry for disturbing everyone's cultivation. Nian Bing apologizes here. Everyone has seen my situation. Actually, age can't stop us from becoming powerful magicians. Everyone, I'm sorry for disturbing everyone's cultivation. Especially young people like me. As long as everyone is willing to work hard, they can all become powerful magicians. Alright, everyone can go back to work. I've just returned, so I'm going to take a rest. Teacher Li Hua, I'll have to trouble you to make me a few new magic robes. I don't need any special emblems, but please make the robes gold. It'll be a commemoration of my golden hair. Li Su was taken aback. Gold? Isn't that a little too arrogant? One had to know that the colors of magic robes were divided into 7 colors according to the school of magic. Light magicians' robes were white, spatial magicians' robes were silver, and dark magicians' robes were black. Water, fire, earth, and wind magicians' robes were blue, red, yellow, and green. As for the special nature magicians of the Longmu Empire, they wore green magic robes. Gold magic robes had never appeared on the continent. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, Arrogant? I don't think so. I don't belong to any school of magic anymore. Do you want me to wear a colorful magic robe? Let's just make it gold. Finished speaking, he pulled Long Ling and walked out of the crowd. The way the magicians looked at Nian Bing was somewhat different. The older magician's eyes were filled with admiration and worry, while the younger magician's eyes were filled with fanaticism. They had all heard of Nian Bing's age. 20 years old. A mere 20 years old magician had actually reached the level of magister. In their hearts, Nian Bing's image had already become abnormally high. Arrogant? What I want is arrogance, Nian Bing secretly thought in her heart. In this world, it was a world where the strong survived. As long as you were strong enough, what did it matter if you were arrogant? She had always been low-key, but now she would not continue. For Ling what she needed was fame. And this fame would start from within the Ice and Fire chef. She wanted everyone on the continent to know the title of white-haired gold-clothed Ice and Fire chef. Fame was a double-edged sword. It would allow her to obtain a lot, but at the same time, it would make those vile people who only knew how to eat sour grapes jealous. If they wanted to be jealous, then let them be jealous. Only those who did not know how to work hard would always eat sour grape. They could only hide in the dark. On the surface, their appearance was dim, but in reality, they had a belly full of thieves and prostitutes. So what if they used underhanded methods? She was not afraid. The tallest tree in the forest would be blown away by the wind. Good. Let's see how big the wind is going to blow at me. Ice and Snow Goddess Priest? Even if you don't come looking for me, it won't be long before I come looking for you. Faintly smiling, Nian Bing's eyes revealed a faint brilliance. Long Ling suddenly felt that his hand holding hers was so firm. This man was like a mountain that she could always rely on. With him by her side, she would not be afraid, would not be afraid. The worry in her eyes disappeared. Everything that Nian Bing had done since she came back had already told her a lot. What else did she need to worry about? Everything. She would leave it all to her man. Yes, he was her man. He would always be her only man. Even if he failed, so what? She would always have her own home. But in this life, she would only belong to this man. Leaning on Nian Bing's shoulder, Long Ling pointed to the side. Nian Bing faintly smiled and led her in that direction. It was the first time that Nian Bing had come to Long Ling's room. Her room was decorated very simply. All kinds of plush toys occupied most of the space. Every corner had their figures. The room's overall color was light purple, just like Long Ling's long purple hair. The elegant and warm atmosphere made Nian Bing's heart feel a lot more comfortable. He deeply felt that no matter what he did for Long Ling, it was all worth it. He pulled the shy Long Ling over. Letting her sit on his lap, surrounding her warm and soft body, smelling the faint fragrance on her body, Nian Bing's heart surged. Ling it's been hard on you these days. Long Ling gently shook her head and gently smiled. She said, "It's all worth it, isn't it? I didn't wait in vain. I know that everything you did just now was for me. Ling was it worth it?" "Of course it was worth it," Nian Bing said seriously. "Ling do you know? When I stepped into Ice Snow City again, I swore that in the future, no matter what, I would never let you cry for me again. Don't worry, for you, even if I have to take revenge in the future, I will definitely leave my life behind." Long Ling's eyes were as gentle as water. She took the initiative to lean into Nian Bing's arms and said softly, "Nian Bing, I'm so happy now. Do you know? Ever since you rejected me, Ling has not been happy for a single day. I also want to forget you, but I just can't. Even I don't know what I like about you, but I just like you. Nian Bing, I don't care about anything. As long as I can be by your side, it's enough. I know. You still have many things to do. I won't go with you because I don't want to be a burden to you. I only hope that you can remember. I won't go with you because I don't want to be a burden to you. I only hope that you can remember that no matter what you do, I will always support you and wait for you to come back." The gentleness of a gentlewoman was enough to soften the hard metal. No matter how strong Nian Bing's spiritual power was, he couldn't control the emotions in his heart at a time like this. He was a little rough as he kissed those gentle lips. He kissed them deeply. Long Ling threw away her reservations and responded shakily. Her hands hooked around Nian Bing's neck. She only had one thought in her heart. At this moment, this man belonged to her. There seemed to be a fire in his heart, burning Nian Bing's heart. He forgot everything and abandoned all scruples. Unconsciously, he had already touched Long Ling's chest. Their breathing gradually became heavy, but he did not have any scruples. When he came back to find Long Ling, he had already decided that she would be his wife. As for Long Ling, she did not want to resist at all now. She did not dare to think about everything in the future. She was more willing to give herself to the man she loved most at this moment. Just when Nian Bing had already untied Long Ling's clothes and was preparing to continue the next step, a discordant voice sounded in his mind. "Hey, Nian Bing!" The sudden voice startled Nian Bing. He quickly withdrew his hands that were searching for her. The desire in his heart suddenly dropped, and his body was a little sluggish. Nian Bing suddenly stopped, making Long Ling feel empty. She also subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. She leaned on Nian Bing's chest and kept panting. "Nian Bing, what happened to you?" Nian Bing smiled bitterly. "Nothing, Ling. Let me hold you tight, okay?" As he spoke, he hugged the dragon spirit tightly. In his warm embrace, the dragon spirit's heart was filled with gratification. It closed its eyes and fell asleep under Nian Bing's hypnosis spell, which was based on dark magic. For the first time in so many days, she slept so contentedly. Compared to Long Ling's contentment and calmness, Nian Bing was angrily scolding some ignorant guy at this time. "Kaka, you deliberately went against me, didn't you? Who told you to peek?" How could Nian Bing be in a good mood when his good thing was ruined? Oscar laughed and said, "I say, old man, you can't blame me for this. Who told us to share the same body now? What you can see and feel, of course I can feel it too. I feel so wronged. I obviously helped you just now. Not only did you not thank me, but you also blame me. Without my help, would you be able to send that explosive force to the sky so smoothly?" Hearing Oscar's words, Nian Bing's anger disappeared. He asked doubtfully, "Have you mastered the way to control your own energy? What exactly is that gray energy of yours?" Oscar said, "I haven't figured it out yet. How could it be so easy? My energy is very strange. As long as I feel the energy in your body, I will have a very comfortable feeling. Previously, the sense of crisis that appeared in your spiritual power woke me up from my cultivation, so I helped you while I was at it. I found that my energy is not like your magical power. It is formed by the combination of a magical power and spiritual power. As for the specific effect, I will have to wait for more cultivation to determine." Nian Bing said somewhat helplessly, "Well, brother, you can continue to sleep. Work hard to cultivate your ability. I hope you won't make a sound next time." Oscar chuckled and said, "That's hard to say. You were very emotional just now. When you were too excited, I will wake up again. It's very likely that I will wake up again. Who asked us to share the same body?" Nian Bing said bitterly, "You did it on purpose. I will definitely open my 7 apertures as soon as possible to reshape your body and get you out of there." In fact, he was very grateful to Oscar for helping him at such a crucial time. However, who would be willing to have someone watch him being intimate with the woman he loved? Oscar did not make a sound and seemed to have entered a deep sleep. Nian Bing kissed Long Ling's forehead lightly and carefully placed her on the bed, letting her sleep peacefully. Pulling a chair and sitting down, Nian Bing's mind changed all kinds of thoughts. Today, for Ling he impulsively proposed a bet to Long Ji. Since he had already proposed it, he could not regret it. However, just as Long Ji said, how could he affect the political situation of the entire Ice Moon Empire? Helping the first prince or the second prince was obviously the best choice. They already had a certain amount of power. However, if he really helped them, would they be under his control? That was definitely impossible. Kill Yen Yun? This was not difficult, but killing him would very likely implicate the Magician's Guild, which would also implicate Ling. This was definitely not desirable. At that time, Long Ji would also not approve of him. If he wanted to sincerely hand Ling over to him, then he had to help him achieve his wish. What should he do? Thinking about it, a figure suddenly appeared in Yan Bing's mind. A familiar figure. It should be him. Although he was somewhat helpless, but he had to make a choice. At least, he firmly believed that the person he wanted to help could definitely be trusted. The person Yan Bing thought of was the 7th Prince Yan Feng, who had no power in the Ice Moon Empire. The Yan Jihua who Ling Yan Bing almost vomited. Although his sexual orientation made Ling Yan Bing shudder, Yan Bing believed that he was a trustworthy friend. If he could help him ascend to the throne of the Ice Moon Empire, it would clearly be the best choice. When the time came and he asked him to take care of the Magician's Guild, he would definitely not refuse. However, there was a problem. Although Yan Feng was also one of the princes, his power was too weak, and he had such a special hobby. Outsiders might not know, but how could the royal family not know? It was too difficult for him to become the king. It was definitely not enough to rely on himself. Thinking of this, Yan Bing's mind raced, thinking about the power he could use. Long Ji was wrong about one thing. The current Yan Bing was no longer a person. The hidden power he had was beyond Long Ji's imagination. Just the Fire Dragon King Garamandes had reached the level of the Ice Goddess Priest. What's more, he still had friends. It would not be difficult to ask for help from friends. Garamandes, Hillard, and his grandfather, one by one, flashed through his mind. Yan Bing kept thinking and had roughly decided on what to do in the future. Thinking of this, he walked out of Long Ling's room and quietly left the Magician's Guild. Yan Bing was most satisfied with the innate Qi's self-recovery ability. He did not need to deliberately cultivate, and the magical power and mental strength that he consumed would gradually recover. Especially with the help of the Tianming acupoint, he did not need to rest and his mental strength could quickly recover to its peak state. Walking along the street, Yan Bing soon stopped in front of a shop. This was a shop that sold all kinds of magical items. The shop was medium-sized and did not stand out on the street. Walking into the shop, Yan Bing looked around. At this time, there were no other customers in the shop. A waiter came up to him. "Sir, what would you like to order?" Yan Bing said indifferently, "Lion King Rangoon." A strange light flashed in the waiter's eyes. He nodded and said, "The item you want is very precious. Please follow me to the back hall." As he spoke, he led Yan Bing to the back of the shop. After passing through the counter and entering a small door, the waiter did not say much. He rhythmically tapped a few times on the wall. With a click, a secret door opened, and a long and narrow staircase led to the ground. The waiter nodded to Yan Bing. Yan Bing did not hesitate and immediately went down the stairs. The door behind him closed naturally, leaving no trace behind. He put on a smile and continued to walk forward. Ordinary magical gems were inlaid on both sides of the narrow passage. These gems provided a faint light in the passage. The further down he went, the stronger the magical aura. After descending about 20 meters and making 2 turns, Yan Bing arrived at an underground stone room. In the corner, a cold voice sounded, "Lion King Rangoon." Yan Bing did not look in that direction. He calmly said, "Fiery Continent." Through his Tian-Yen acupoint, he could clearly feel that there were at least a few people in this small stone room. Every one of them was not weak, but they hid their auras very well. A figure walked out from the corner. This person was dressed in black, had short black hair, a medium build, and an ordinary appearance. He was the kind of person who could not be recognized in a crowd. However, the light in his eyes was not ordinary. There was a hint of coldness in his calm eyes. The light in his eyes flickered as he carefully looked at Yan Bing. Yan Bing also looked at him without saying a word. The man in black said, "Please show your tokens." Yan Bing's left hand flashed, and an exquisitely carved red jade lion with a faint red glow appeared. The man in black was clearly stunned. Then, He immediately knelt on one knee and respectfully said, "Greetings, sect leader." Nian Bing was also a little stunned. "Sect leader? You said I am the sect leader?" The man in black said with certainty, "Yes, we only recognize lions, not people. Only the sect leader can have a blood lion. You have a token, so you are our sect leader. I am the Blood Lion Sect's Ice Snow Flag Sect's Ice Moon Sect leader." Nian Bing took a deep breath and said, "Stand up." Not long after he left the capital city, Prince Rong had a serious talk with him. Because Nian Bing promised to take over the Rong family in the future, Prince Rong told him a secret that only the leader of the Rong family knew. That was the underground power of the Rong family in the entire Yangon continent. Only Prince Rong knew about this. This underground power had been formed for thousands of years. Prince Rong did not tell Nian Bing how big this underground power was, but he clearly told him that this underground power was called the Blood Lion Sect. The members of this underground power would not have to worry about loyalty. The red jade lion was the token. As long as he used this lion to confirm his identity, he would give an order, and the members of the Blood Lion Sect would do their best to carry it out. Chapter 136. However, Prince Rong did not tell him that the red jade lion was actually the leader of the blood cult. Looking at Blood kneeling in front of her, Nian Bing calmly said, "Stand up." Blood stood up and respectfully said, "Leader, may I ask Demonic Lion?" Speaking to this point, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of sadness. Demonic Lion was referring to Prince Rong. Prince Rong had told Nian Bing before that in the Blood Lion cult, there were people in all kinds of professions. Everyone only had a code name and no real name. His code name was Demonic Lion. Nian Bing understood Blood's meaning and said, "Demonic Lion is fine, but he passed this Blood Lion token to me. I think I understand his meaning now. From now on, I am the leader of the Blood Lion cult." Blood's expression turned solemn and said, "Leader, please give me your code name. I will send it to every hall and every banner as soon as possible. We will await your orders at any time." Nian Bing's eyes flashed and said, "My code name will be Whitehair." Demonic Lion did not tell me too much about the cult. Now, tell me about the situation of the Blood Lion cult. Blood nodded and said, "Our cult has been established for 1,364 years. Our cult system is strict and we follow orders. The highest leader is the cult leader who holds the Blood Lion token. Every generation of cult leaders will pass down the Blood Lion token before they die and send the message to the Blood Lion Hall, the highest elder hall of the cult, for confirmation. This is to prevent the Blood Lion token from being stolen. Under the cult leader, the Blood Lion Hall's 7 elders are in charge. The Blood Lion Hall is jointly managed by the 7 elders. There are 500 blood guards. They are the elites of the cult and are in charge of some of the most difficult and special operations. Our cult members are engaged in all kinds of professions on the continent. Other than the Blood Lion Hall, there are 5 other halls. They are called Huarong Hall, Longmu Hall, Ice Moon Hall, Qilu Hall, and Aolan Hall. There are flags under each of the 5 halls. Each flag is in charge of a city, regardless of the size of the city. Each flag has the same number of people according to the size of the city. Using my ice snow flag as an example, there are a total of 267 members. The members of our cult have different titles according to their rank. The sect leader was the only Blood Lion. Below the sect leader, the 7 elders were also known as the Golden Lion Elders. Below them were the hall masters of the 5 halls. The hall masters were at the Silver Lion level. Next up, we banner masters are of the Red Lion rank. Apart from the Blood Lion Hall's blood guards, all of the combatants are divided into 7 ranks in descending order: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. Among them, unless the Red Lion Banner Master had made a special contribution to the cult, he must at least possess a yellow rank combat ability. As for the hall masters and elders, they had to reach the red level. The red level was equivalent to a swordsman or an archmage. The weakest purple level was equivalent to a swordsman. Without the strength of a swordsman or above, one could not become a combatant. That is to say, the combat strength of our sex combat personnel is more refined. After hearing the blood, Nian Bing couldn't help being shocked. Originally, she had thought that the Blood Lion cult was just a secret intelligence network of the Rong family. But now, it seemed that the Blood Lion cult was not just a simple intelligence network. The Rong family's hidden strength was actually not any weaker than what they appeared to be. Why did her grandfather give her the position of the Blood Lion cult's leader? If the strength of the Blood Lion cult's red level was equivalent to that of a swordsman, what did that mean? The 5 hall masters and 7 elders were all swordsmen. Heavens, there were suddenly 12 swordsmen. Adding on the Blood Lion cult's strength in the entire continent, it was simply too terrifying. Originally, she didn't have any confidence in supporting Yen Feng to take the throne, but with the support of the Blood Lion cult, her confidence increased greatly. Looking at Nian Bing's constantly changing expression, Blood coughed and said, "Cult leader, do you have any other orders?" Nian Bing thought for a while, then raised the Blood Lion command in her hand and said, "Pass down my order. In the shortest time possible, transfer 80% of the Blood Lion cult's combatants who are green level and above to the Ice Moon Empire's capital, Ice Moon City. The 5 hall masters and 7 elders will also be transferred to Ice Moon City and await further orders. This operation's code name is Sky Change." Hearing that Nian Bing wanted to transfer so many people at once, Blood couldn't help but be shocked. "Cult leader, do you really want to transfer so many people?" Nian Bing didn't answer and continued, "At the same time, use the cult's intelligence network to collect everything about the princes of the Ice Moon Empire. Once the information is collected, transfer it directly to Ice Moon City. Soon, I will go to the Ice Moon Empire's Ice Moon flag to give the following orders." Blood felt a trace of coldness from Nian Bing and said respectfully, "This subordinate obeys." Nian Bing took a deep look at Blood and said, "Send my orders to Demonic Lion and let him know. Send 2 capable people to follow me. Give me 3 claps as a signal and wait for my orders." "Yes, cult leader. All right, do what I told you to do as soon as possible. I'll be leaving first." After personally sending Nian Bing out of the magic item shop, Blood returned to the secret room and shouted, "Men." A black shadow seemed to float out from the wall and kneeled down on one knee in front of him and said respectfully, "Flag Master." Blood said, "Send 2 green level brothers to follow the cult leader and wait for his orders. Go to the Blood Lion Hall personally and report everything that happened here to the elders, including the cult leader's orders. Let them make the decision. You must confirm the cult leader's identity first. I feel that this person is a bit strange. I can't feel any aura from him, as if he's just an ordinary person. White hair, there's actually such a young cult leader." He didn't notice that on the corner of the wall, a faint silver light quietly disappeared. Standing on the street, Nian Bing revealed a faint smile on his face, and said to himself, "Meticulous thoughts, as expected of a flag master. Since Grandpa gave me the Blood Lion token, he should have already arranged everything for me. Looks like I really have to meet the cult leader as soon as possible. From now on, they'll be my eyes." When Nian Bing returned to Long Ling's room, Long Ling was still sleeping soundly. Her sleeping face was as beautiful as ever, and a trace of satisfaction appeared on her gentle face. Nian Bing helped her pull up the blanket, and only then did he walk out of the room to look for Long Ji. "Teacher, may I come in?" Nian Bing lightly knocked on Long Ji's door. Long Ji's voice sounded from inside the room, "Come in." Nian Bing pushed open the door and walked into Long Ji's room. This was his first time here. However, every time he came here, he couldn't help but admire Long Ji's persistence. There was nothing in the room apart from a meditation cushion. In order to improve his magic, Long Ji had been cultivating almost every day. Nian Bing walked to the opposite side of Long Ji and directly sat down on the ground, Teacher, before I came back today, I went to Qingfeng Zhai. Uncle Xueji wants to invite us to dinner tonight. Long Ji didn't answer the question, "What is your domain?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "I call it the Sky Eye domain." Long Ji sighed, "I didn't expect that after so many years of hard work. I'm not as good as you, a newcomer who has only been cultivating magic for 10 years. It seems that I'm really old." Today's defeat not only made Long Ji have a whole new level of respect for Nian Bing, but at the same time, it also made his ambition to develop the Magician's Union fade a lot. Nian Bing said, "Teacher, sometimes being too persistent is not a good thing. Maybe you think that the most precious thing for you is the Union, but you're wrong. For you, the most precious thing should be Ling. If you use the most precious thing in exchange for the prosperity of the Union, do you really think it's worth it? Actually, you don't need to be discouraged. Although my magic power has already stepped into the door of Magister, there is still a big gap between you and me. The reason why I was able to defeat you today was because my 7 blades played an important role. If I didn't use them and just relied on my innate domain, it wouldn't be easy for me to defeat you. At the same level, the technique of control is the key to victory. You seem to have neglected this aspect." Long Ji's face revealed a trace of a smile. "I have to admit that you are a genius. I'm almost certain you will become a god-descending master in the continent. Although the Ice Goddess Priestess is strong, but when she was your age, she definitely didn't have the results you have now. Nian Bing, I'm proud of you. However, my thoughts will not change. I'll give you 3 months. If you can't show me some results in 3 months, then you know the result." Nian Bing stood up and walked towards the door while saying, "Teacher, I'm not some gentleman. In these 3 months I will definitely do my best. However, if I fail, then I won't let Linger marry that 5th prince. Tonight, please come with us to the Cool Breeze study. It's been a long time since I've tasted Master Ming's cooking." Long Ji's heart was startled. Nian Bing had already walked out of the room. He clearly felt the intense killing intent emitted by Nian Bing just now. That killing intent wasn't directed at him. It could be imagined that it was directed at. The dinner at the Cool Breeze study ended in a calm and harmonious atmosphere. During the dinner, the happiest person was Long Ling sitting beside Nian Bing. She ate with great relish. The happiness that she hadn't felt in a long time had once again appeared on her body. Xuejing appeared to be very calm. She sat on the other side of Long Ling and ate peacefully. She didn't even look at Nian Bing and Garamandes. Long Ji acted as if nothing had happened. He was chatting happily with Polar Snow and Ming Hui. Ming Yuan and Ming Hui also attended this banquet. Nian Bing's appearance made them very excited. The 3 of them exchanged pointers on their culinary skills, and they all felt that they had gained a lot. "Teacher, I want to stay at the Cool Breeze study for a few days. After 2 days, I want to go to Ice Moon City to experience the cooking there." Nian Bing smiled and said to Long Ji. Before Long Ji could reply, Long Ling panicked. "Nian Bing, you've finally come back. How can you go back to the Union to stay?" Nian Bing squeezed Long Ling's soft little hand under the table. Through his spiritual power and soul, his voice sounded directly in Long Ling's heart. "Aren't you afraid that I'll eat you tonight?" Long Ling's face instantly turned red. "You?" Looking at her shy appearance, Nian Bing really wanted to go back with her and eat her up. However, thinking that he still had many things to do, he forced himself to suppress the thoughts in his heart. Be good. From now on, I will work hard for our future." Long Ling lowered her head and didn't say anything. Long Ji looked at his daughter with some surprise and said, "All right then. Old Shue's place is indeed more comfortable than the Union's." Long Ling reluctantly left with Long Ji. Xuejing actually took the initiative to send Nian Bing and Garamandes back to their room. The 3 of them walked in the elegant environment of the Cool Breeze study. When they arrived at the courtyard where Nian Bing and Garamandes were staying, Xuejing stopped and said in a deep voice, "That Long something, you can go back first. I have something to say to Nian Bing. Garamandes was stunned for a moment and said unhappily, My name is Long Hua, not Long something. Xuejing said unhappily, Long Hua, that's enough. You can go back first. Nian Bing said, Xuejing, if you have something to say, just say it. Brother Long is an outsider. Xuejing bit her lower lip and said, Do you really like Ling Er? Nian Bing nodded firmly. Xuejing took a deep breath and seemed to have decided something. All right then. You must treat Ling Er well. For Ling Er's sake, let's forget about our past. But if you dare to let her down, don't blame me for being impolite. Nian Bing was stunned for a moment and looked at Xuejing with a puzzled expression. Xuejing blushed under his gaze and said, What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a beauty before? You stinky men, how can you compare to us sisters? I've said what I wanted to say. Just remember it. After saying that, she immediately turned and ran away. Looking at Xuejing's departing figure, Nian Bing was finally sure that the grudge between her and her had really disappeared. She couldn't help but shake her head helplessly. Women. Really fickle animals. Garamandes pretended to be angry and said, You're not allowed to call her an animal. Nian Bing chuckled and said, If she wasn't an animal, how could she be with you? When Garamandes heard this, his face fell. I say, brother, what do you think I should do now? Nian Bing obviously knew what he was referring to. She smiled and said, Don't be anxious. I'm not sure about Xuejing's temper either. We can only take one step at a time. Since you really like her, you have to care about time. How about this, tomorrow I'll go and talk to Uncle Xueji, and let you take Xuejing as your disciple. Garamandes's eyes almost popped out. His voice rose an octave. What? You want me to take her as my disciple? Nian Bing said matter-of-factly. If you can't get close to her, how can you win her heart? Only by interacting more and understanding more will you have a chance. More importantly, you have to let her understand how powerful you are. Garamandes smiled bitterly and said, But that Xueji doesn't have any good feelings towards me. Will he agree? Nian Bing smiled and said, Then it'll be up to me. You can't chase girls, but can't you have enough strength? Don't forget, you're the great fire dragon king, Garamandes. I'll stay here for at most 2 days, then I'll make a trip to Ice Moon City. During this period of time, you have to cultivate your relationship with Xuejing. You have to remember, you can't be too hasty. You have to do your job well first. At the very least, you have to gain the trust and good feelings of the father and daughter before you can proceed to the next step. Whether you can succeed or not, it'll be up to you. During this period of time, I'll have to trouble Big Brother to help me protect Ling. Today, that fifth prince is not only interested in Xuejing, at the same time, he also has bad intentions towards Ling. When I'm not here, I'll have to trouble you. Garamandes laughed and said, You're really good at chasing girls. You've just sent off Feng Nu, and now there's Ling. I didn't have time to ask you at dinner tonight. This Miss Ling looks pretty good too. However, don't tell me you want both of them? Will they agree? Aren't you afraid that they'll overturn the jar of vinegar? Nian Bing smiled and said, I've already told Feng Nu about Ling. Ling also knows about Feng Nu's existence. To me, I can't give up either one of them now. At this point, the smile on his face couldn't help but turn into a bitter smile. He himself didn't know what it would be like when Long Ling and Feng Nu met again in the future. After returning to his room, Nian Bing sat on his bed and began to meditate. As he meditated, he also thought about what had happened today. He straightened out his thoughts. The 7 solid magic energy balls in his body absorbed the magic energy in the air at least 3 times faster than normal magicians through the use of Xiantian Qi. He had just entered the realm of Archmage, so he needed to consolidate his strength in order to strengthen himself. The next morning, Nian Bing ate breakfast and went to find Xueji alone. He asked to have a chat with him. Xueji happily agreed and directly brought him to the study. Uncle Xue, I came to find you today to talk about Big Brother Long. When Xueji heard that Nian Bing wanted to talk to him about Garamandes, he immediately frowned. Nian Bing, other things can be discussed. However, I really can't accept Longhua. Jing also won't like him, so you don't need to say anything more. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, although I don't completely understand how Big Brother Long offended you, but what I want to talk to you about today is... It's not a matter of feelings. After all, in terms of feelings, for two people to like each other, it can't be forced. Since Xuejing doesn't have that kind of feelings for Big Brother Long, how can I make things difficult for you? Xueji looked at Nian Bing said with a bit of surprise, then what do you mean? Nian Bing said, you should have seen that Big Brother Long's strength is extremely strong, and he also cultivates the fire attribute Doqi. Actually, he's a very good person. It's only because he likes Xuejing too much that he did something rude. I apologize to you on his behalf first. I'm going to Ice Moon City tomorrow, so it's a bit inconvenient to bring Big Brother Long along. I want him to stay here and wait for me, but Big Brother Long is willing to eat and drink here for free. I've discussed with him, and if you're willing, we can let Big Brother Long teach Xuejing some martial arts. Of course, I promise you. He definitely won't bother Xuejing anymore, and will only teach her martial arts. Xueji smiled. Nian Bing, you brats said that you won't force her, but aren't you still creating opportunities for them? Nian Bing said indifferently, Uncle Xue, perhaps you have a good impression of that fifth prince, but there's something I have to tell you. Fifth prince has already proposed marriage to teacher Long Ji. What? Xueji was shocked. Isn't Ling very close to you? A cold light flashed in Nian Bing's eyes, and she said, of course, I won't let Ling become the sacrifice of a political marriage. So, I still have a lot of things to do. I'm telling you this because I want you to know that fifth prince isn't someone who's worthy of Xuejing entrusting her life to. This time, even if you give Big Brother Long a chance, he's really only going to teach Xuejing some martial arts. Speaking up to here, she paused for a moment before continuing, in terms of strength, I'm afraid that you can't find more than a few people in the entire mainland who can match this Big Brother Long of mine. As long as he's here, I believe that all of these troubles will naturally disappear. Hearing Nian Bing's subtle hints, and adding in his understanding of Garamandes, Xueji couldn't help but feel moved. All right, I'll believe you this time. But you have to make it clear to that brat Longhua that he's only going to teach Jing martial arts. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, don't worry, Big Brother Long won't do anything rash again. After leaving the Clear Wind House, Nian Bing walked to a secluded corner and struck her palms 3 times. Immediately, 2 gray figures quietly appeared beside her without making a single sound. Nian Bing said indifferently, tell Blood that I'll be heading to Ice Moon City tomorrow, so the people of the Ice Moon Empire don't need to go. Pay attention to the 5th prince of the Ice Moon Empire, who's staying in the city at all times. If he does anything that's detrimental to the Magician's Guild, you have to protect Miss Long Ling. She spoke very quickly, and immediately walked towards the main street, heading towards the Magician's Guild. Of the 2 gray figures, one flew away, while the other continued to follow Nian Bing from afar. Before reaching the entrance of the Magician's Guild, Nian Bing saw Long Ling standing outside the guild looking in his direction, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of warmth in his heart. Compared to Long Ling, Feng Nu was more independent, and Feng Nu had her own thoughts and pursuit. However, Long Ling only had him in her heart, and that feeling of dependence was something that Feng Nu didn't have. They were both his loved ones, but the feelings that Feng Nu and Long Ling gave him were completely different. With a faint smile, Nian Bing quickly walked over, and Long Ling pulled on his large hand without any hesitation. You're here so late. The sun is already shining on our buttock. Today, Long Ling's complexion was clearly better than yesterday, and her charming face had a bit more color. Her eyes were filled with joy as she looked at Nian Bing. Silly girl, the distance from the Clear Wind House to here is very short, so even if I had to walk, it would still take some time. Why did you come out to wait for me? Long Ling lowered her head and said, I was afraid that you would suddenly disappear. That's why I waited for you here. How could that be? I can't bear to part with my Linger. As they spoke, the two of them walked hand in hand into the guild. The young magicians standing guard looked at the two of them, and their eyes were filled with envy. As they walked, Long Ling sighed softly and said, Nianbing. Actually, sometimes I don't even know what kind of person you are. You always have so many secrets, do you know? This kind of you always gives me a feeling of unease. My heart is very conflicted, and I'm really afraid that you won't want me anymore. As she spoke, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Nianbing wasn't in a hurry to explain, and tightly held Long Ling's small hand, and said in a low voice, Ling, I've always brought you too much trouble, so today I'm here. I want to tell you everything about myself, including all my experiences. I won't hide anything from you. Between you and me, there's no need for any secrets. Perhaps this way you'll have more confidence in me. Long Ling stopped and raised her head to look at Nianbing. Soon, she gently shook her head. She said, No need. Nianbing, I believe in you. You should have your own privacy. Nianbing pulled Long Ling over as if there was no one around, and kissed her forehead, saying, Silly girl, privacy is for outsiders. You're my future wife, what privacy do you need? Annoying, there are still people here. Long Ling shyly lowered her head to her chest, and dared to look at the magicians passing by on both sides. Nianbing smiled faintly. Pulling Long Ling up, she cast a wind magic on both of them, and floated back to Long Ling's boudoir. She cast a soundproof barrier in the room. Still holding her like yesterday, Nianbing talked about his childhood, telling Long Ling his story. This talk took no less than half a day. Just as Nianbing said himself, he didn't hold back at all, starting from his parents, talking about his childhood, as well as where the deep hatred with the ice goddess priests came from, all the way to the recent competition, talking about himself and Feng Nu. Except for his identity as Garamandes and the 7 Dragon Kings, he talked about all his experiences before coming here. Nianbing's narration was very dull, but it set off a huge wave in Long Ling's heart. Only now did she know that the man she had always loved deeply had actually experienced so many calamities. Compared to him, she was already much luckier. Okay, I've already said what I need to say. You know everything after coming here. Ling, about the matter of me being born in the wrong family, don't tell teacher first, okay? Long Ling leaned on Nianbing's chest. She kept her head down, listening to Nianbing in silence. Until Nianbing finished everything, she didn't say a word. Nianbing, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Don't say sorry, I should be the one who's sorry. Ling, I carried such a deep hatred, and my enemy was so powerful. At that time, I really dared to accept your feelings. Only after going through so much with Feng Nu did I understand what it means to cherish. Can you forgive me for the past? Long Ling raised her head to look at Nianbing. Her beautiful big eyes had long been covered with a layer of mist. Suddenly, her face became serious. I can forgive you. I believe that everything you said just now is true, but there's one thing you didn't say. When did you use the life curse? Nianbing was shocked. He didn't say anything about the 7 Dragon Kings, but his white hair, Long Ling remembered it deeply. Now that she heard Nianbing's story, she asked the question in her heart. Nianbing hesitated and said, I'm sorry, Ling, I can't tell you this. Indeed, I used the life curse. At that time, I didn't have a choice. In order to protect my friend, I had to do that. Don't ask, okay? This matter is related to my friend's secret, I really can't say. Long Ling looked deeply at Nianbing, nodded and said, Okay, I won't ask. But I want to tell you, if you die, then I will go find you. Nianbing's whole body shook, strong feelings spread in his chest. Once again, he deeply kissed those moving lips. Long Ling responded passionately. Between each other, they seemed to want to melt each other. Nianbing nimbly turned over, pressing Long Ling under his body. A small spark was gradually developing in the direction of a prairie fire. Just at this time, that untimely voice sounded again. Nian Bing's mind called out, "Nian Bing." Stopping his movements, Nian Bing angrily shouted in his heart, "Kaka, I'm going to strangle you to death." "Idiot, don't tell me you can't feel the danger outside?" Oscar said disdainfully. With a thought, Ling Nianbing, who was originally blinded by lust, opened his Tian Yen acupoint, feeling everything in the outside world. Suddenly, a cold aura spread in the air, and Nianbing calmed down. He hurriedly jumped down from the bed, blocking in front of Long Ling. His innate domain instantly erupted, filling the whole room. Chapter 137. Long Ling woke up instantly under the influence of the Khanate realm. She could clearly feel that her senses had been strengthened several times in this rainbow realm. The ice elements continuously flowed into her body, making her feel indescribably comfortable. To her, the Khanate realm was something she had only heard of. This was the first time she had experienced the mysteries of the Khanate realm. "Nian Bing, come out." A cold voice sounded. Ling Nianbing's heart skipped a beat. He immediately remembered who had come. He turned to Long Ling and said softly, "Wait for me in the room. Don't go out. Leave everything to me." He retracted the Khanate realm and opened the door. Just as he had expected, a woman was standing in the middle of the courtyard. She was wearing a snow-white magician's robe with a white veil over her face. Nian Bing naturally recognized her. She was Qianhuan Bingyun, the opponent he had narrowly defeated in the new Star Magician competition. She was also his enemy's braid. Seeing Qianhuan Bingyun, Nian Bing couldn't help but have the urge to laugh. This beauty who claimed to be cold and pure actually fell for his breast-grabbing hand during the competition that day. Thinking about it, it was really ridiculous. "You found me so quickly. Miss Bingyun, didn't your master come with you?" Nian Bing looked at Bingyun calmly. More than 2 months had passed. He was no longer the Nian Bing from the competition. Bingyun's ice goddess realm posed no threat to him at all. Bingyun looked at Nian Bing's half-smile, and the anger in her heart had reached its peak. Nian Bing's last grab during the competition was a great humiliation to her. Bingyun hated it. She had always wanted to find Nian Bing for revenge. However, before she could find Nian Bing had already quietly left Capital City. On her way back, Bingyun searched everywhere for Nian Bing, but to no avail. She had no choice but to return to the Ice God Tower. The Ice Goddess Priestess was in closed-door cultivation. Bingyun was also in closed-door cultivation for a period of time, but Nian Bing's hateful appearance often appeared in her mind. Her originally pure heart couldn't calm down no matter what, so she couldn't go into closed-door cultivation. Just yesterday, she had clearly felt the power of the 7 elemental spells erupting at the same time. Although the distance was very far, with her cultivation and the use of her innate domain, she could still clearly sense the direction of the energy explosion. Thus, she traveled day and night, using her blizzard magic to fly over. When she reached Ice Snow City, she naturally went straight to the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Guild. "To deal with a vile person like you, do you think you deserve my master's help?" Layer after layer of frost-like aura constantly emitted from Bingyun's body. Nian Bing faintly smiled and said, "But don't forget, this is the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Guild, not your Ice God Tower. In my territory, what chance do you think you have?" Bingyun snorted and said, "If you are still a man, then have a fair duel with me. I won't stop until one of us is dead." Nian Bing laughed mischievously and said, "Whether I am a man or not, I'm afraid you will only know when we are in bed. You bastard." Bingyun instantly exploded like a barrel of dynamite. The Ice Goddess domain instantly burst forth, and in the blink of an eye, Nian Bing's body was already surrounded by a layer of frost. At the same time, Nian Bing could clearly sense that although the Snow Goddess domain had enveloped him, the illusory ice cloud had flown high into the sky. It was obvious that the illusory ice cloud was afraid of his eternal sleep magic array. "Qianhuan Bingyun, You are underestimating me, Nian Bing. After going through life and death with the 7 Dragon Kings, do you think you are still my match? The Sky Eye domain erupted along with the Ice Goddess domain at the same time. When the ice met the 7 elemental domains, it instantly disintegrated. The additional attack power of the Ice Goddess domain simply couldn't pose any threat to Nian Bing. Through the senses of the Sky Eye acupoint, Nian Bing accurately located Qianhuan Bingyun's position. Light flashed in her eyes, and the wind shadow puppet floated out, passing through the Ice Goddess domain and rising into the sky. After his battle with Long Ji the day before, Nian Bing discovered that the energy his wind shadow puppet absorbed disappeared very quickly after absorbing Long Ji's wind magic. It didn't maintain the same level of strength as the shadow puppet after absorbing the energy. She also didn't understand what was going on. The proud heaven blade carried a dazzling rainbow as it broke through the sky. Under the enhancement of the Sky Eye domain, it passed through the Ice Goddess domain in the blink of an eye, rushing towards Bingyun in the sky. The Sky Eye acupoint was the nemesis of any psychedelic magic. Although Bingyun's body was hidden behind a large expanse of ice and snow, she simply couldn't escape the pursuit of the Sky Eye acupoint. While continuously chanting an incantation, Bingyun released a dual-colored ice sphere in an attempt to block the wind shadow puppet. However, Nian Bing's 7 wind shadow puppets formed from her innate qi had the power equivalent to a spell of the 7th step even outside the Sky Eye domain. Moreover, she still had the proud heaven blade in her hands. The azure rainbow pierced through the sky. Amidst an ear-piercing grinding sound, the dual-colored ice sphere was split into 2. Azure light flashed, and it chased after Bingyun's body. Bingyun was alarmed. The magic staff in her hand trembled rhythmically, and circles of icy blue air floated out, blocking the wind shadow puppet's advance. Only after withdrawing and releasing the Ice Goddess domain again and again did she barely manage to force the wind shadow puppet back to the ground. A rainbow radiance surrounded Nian Bing's body, gently pulsating. The 7 wind shadow puppets surrounded him. Through the Sky Eye domain, he was helping the wind shadow puppets replenish their energy. Innate domain? Bingyun looked at Nian Bing below her in shock. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "What? Could it be that only you can have an innate domain?" Their battle had already attracted the attention of the magicians in the Union. A large number of magicians rushed over from all directions. Bingyun glared hatefully at Nian Bing and said, "Fine, just you wait. The matter between us isn't over yet." As she said this, she suddenly sped up and flew into the distance. Nian Bing coldly said, "Of course it's not over yet. Miss Bingyun, I think we will meet again soon." He didn't chase after her. Icon Library still wasn't the time to find trouble with the Ice God Tower. Qianhuan Bingyun's appearance gave him a bold idea. Of course, this idea needed time to be realized. The 7 wind shadow puppets disappeared at the same time with the 7 magic blade. Long Ji floated over and asked, "Nian Bing, who are you fighting with?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "Naturally, it's the people you hate the most. The Ice God Tower has already noticed me. Teacher, I will be leaving Ice Snow City early tomorrow morning. Don't forget our bet." Long Ji was shocked and asked, "People from the Ice God Tower?" Nian Bing nodded and said, "They're coming for me. They're coming for Qianhuan Bingyun, who lost to me in the competition this time. What puzzles me is that even though I have the stone of the Ice Goddess, why didn't the Ice Goddess priestess appear? Could it be that the stone of the Ice Goddess is no longer important to them?" Nian Bing wasn't afraid of the Ice Goddess priestess appearance. Although his current strength wasn't enough, there was still the Fire Dragon King and Garamandes in Ice Snow City. The Ice Goddess priestess' strength wouldn't be much stronger than Garamandes. Even if she really came, Nian Bing wasn't afraid. Long Ling walked out of the room. She didn't ask anything and just gently snuggled up to Nian Bing. Breeze room. Xuejing looked at Garamandes, who was brought by Xueji, and said angrily, "Father, are you kidding me? Let him teach me martial arts?" Xueji already knew that his daughter would have such a reaction. He smiled and said, "Why not? In this world, the strong are respected. Your current strength is only at the level of a great swordsman. You have also seen Mr. Long's ability. With his guidance, your strength will increase even faster." Xuejing snorted and said, "You want me to learn martial arts from a despicable person like him? Impossible. What ability does he have? He only knows how to do sneaky things." Garamandes didn't say anything. He only looked at Xuejing in silence, causing Xuejing to feel uneasy. Xueji said, "Everyone has their own strengths. You can rest assured. Mr. Long was introduced to you by Nian Bing. He will only teach you martial arts. It doesn't matter if you don't want to learn from him, as long as you can defeat him." Before bringing Garamandes here, he had carefully thought about Nian Bing's words. He had to re-evaluate Garamandes. Xuejing sneered and said, "That's good. If you want to take me as your disciple, you should at least give me a greeting gift. As long as I am satisfied with the gift, I will consider learning martial arts from you." As she said that, she stretched out her slender hand. Although she had a bad temper, it didn't mean that she wasn't smart. She didn't know how strong Garamandes was, but she was very clear that she was no match for Garamandes. So, she immediately thought of another way to make things difficult for him. Garamandes smiled bitterly and said, "This is the first time I have seen a disciple like you. You haven't even acknowledged me as your master and you are already threatening me. Alright, this is for you." A red light flashed in his hand and an unremarkable red dagger appeared in his hand. He handed it to Xuejing. Xuejing looked at Garamandes with some surprise. "You also know magic?" Space-type magic items couldn't be activated without magic power. Garamandes laughed and said, "I don't know how many people want to take me as their master. Not bad, not only do I know martial arts, I am also proficient in some magic. I can be considered a magic warrior." Xuejing took the dagger. As soon as the dagger entered her hand suddenly sank. If it wasn't for her quick reaction, the dagger would have fallen out of her hand. She looked at the dagger in her hand. The dagger was about 1 foot and 2 inches long. The hilt was 5 inches long and the guard was not inlaid with any gems. The whole dagger and the sheath were dark red. There was no dazzling light. But what was strange was that this dagger was 10 times heavier than other daggers of the same type. It was heavy in her hand. If she didn't use Douqi, it would be difficult for her to control it. Although she felt that the dagger was not ordinary, Xuejing still put on a look of disdain and said, "You want to fool me with this kind of broken dagger? You're too stingy." Garamandes stared at her with wide eyes. "I'm stingy? Miss, do you know what kind of dagger this is? You have the strength of a great swordsman. With this dagger, your strength will increase by at least 1 level. You've seen Nian Bing's Xingyang saber, right? Aside from the fact that this dagger can't support magic, its quality is not inferior to that Xingyang saber. You can use the dagger. Why don't you take the dagger out and see?" The part of his sentence that attracted Xuejing the most was undoubtedly the part about increasing her strength by 1 level. Although Xuejing didn't believe it in her heart, her curiosity drove her to draw the dagger out of the sheath. In an instant, the originally inconspicuous short sword suddenly changed. The 8 inches long blade actually burst out with a red light that was 3 meters long. That was not the light that was produced by the secret release of Douqi, but the light that came from the sword itself. The red light did not dissipate and formed a long rainbow. Xuejing lightly pushed her wrist, and a curtain of light appeared in the air. The red light swept across, and the fake mountain rock was silently split in half. Within the red light, the 8-inch-long blade was also dark red. In the center of the dagger, there was a blood-like light flowing through it. When the dagger was swung, there was a light red hum that was extremely pleasing to the ear. In just an instant, Xuejing discovered that she had fallen in love with this dagger. Xueji, who was standing at the side, sucked in a breath of cold air. He could clearly feel that as a weapon, The dagger's power was even greater than the proud heaven saber that he had given to Nian Bing. The reason why he had chosen to give the proud heaven saber to Nian Bing was because 1. He wanted to rope in Nian Bing. The other reason was because the wind attribute of the proud heaven saber was more inclined towards support magic. The Shui family had always cultivated fire attribute Do Qi. It would not be able to increase their attack power by much. However, this dagger was different. When the dagger was unsheathed, the surging fire attribute energy carried with it an extremely hot aura. The fake mountain rock that had been cut in half by Xuejing had already turned black. That was just the light that came from the dagger. Giving away such a godly dagger so casually, it was too precious. Xuejing was already smiling. She was different from normal girls. Normal girls naturally liked jewelry, but she, who had been practicing martial arts since she was young, was especially fond of swords. Seeing such a godly dagger, her dissatisfaction with Garamandes immediately disappeared. She excitedly said, "Good. Long, why didn't you take out such a good thing before?" Garamandes bitterly smiled and said, "I'm innocent. I had already prepared the most suitable dagger for you, but you didn't give me the chance." As one of the 7 Dragon Kings, he was the wealthiest of the Dragon Kings. This dagger could be said to be a godly weapon on the continent of Yangon, or even on the continent of gods. Xueji said, "Mr. Long, this dagger is too precious. We cannot accept it. Please take it back." "Jing return the dagger to Mr. Long." Xuejing was dissatisfied and said, "Look at how he gave it away so casually. He must be very rich. Anyway, this is a gift for apprenticeship. There is no reason to return it. Master, Xuejing salutes you." As she said that, she slightly nodded to Garamandes. Garamandes bitterly smiled and said, "Song, you are the only apprentice I have. If I had a few more, I would go bankrupt. Mr. Shui, you don't have to be polite. Since I have already given it away, I will definitely not take it back. Moreover, Xuejing's current strength is still relatively average. With this dagger, it should not be a problem for her to protect herself. It's just that this dagger is a bit powerful. You have to be careful when using it. The name of the dagger is Flaming Moon." Xuejing smiled and said, "It's good to have a powerful dagger. I like powerful daggers. If I don't like you in the future, I will chop you with this dagger. This time you won't be able to block it." As she said that, she waved the dagger in her hand at Garamandes. Of course, she didn't really want to chop Garamandes. It was just a joke. But who knew that Garamandes slightly smiled and said, "You can chop me. If you can hurt me with this dagger, would I still be worthy of being your master?" Since he wanted to hold back and win Xuejing's heart, he had to listen to Nian Bing and show some of his strength. Xuejing was stunned for a moment. She said somewhat uncertainly, "You really want me to chop you?" Garamandes slightly smiled. With his hands behind his back, he said, "Please." Seeing Garamandes's extremely confident appearance, Xuejing gave a dissatisfied snort. She waved the dagger in her hand and chopped at Garamandes. Before extreme snow could stop her, the red light had already swept past Garamandes. However, Garamandes did not even move. Seeing the surprised Xuejing, Garamandes was even more satisfied with her. She looked very fierce on the surface, but she was actually very kind. "No need to be polite. Chop me. You won't be able to hurt me." Xuejing bit her lower lip and said, "All right. You said it." With a flick of her wrist, she swung the dagger again. This time, it was not a threat. The dagger brought out a long rainbow that went straight for Garamandes's left shoulder. Garamandes did not move, nor did he dodge. He allowed the rainbow light to fall on his body. A similar layer of red light rose from his body. When the light from the dagger came into contact with the rainbow light on his body, it actually disappeared. Not only did it not cause any damage, it did not even leave a mark. Xuejing said in shock, What kind of trick is this?" Garamandes helplessly said, "Miss Xuejing, I have never used any tricks before. If your Do Chi can be cultivated to my level, you will naturally understand the mystery behind it. As he said this, he pointed to the sky. Xuejing looked up. She saw an unknown bird flying across the sky 100 zhang away. Just as she was feeling a bit confused, a red light shot out from Garamandes' hand, and in the blink of an eye, it passed through the bird's neck. The bird immediately fell. Garamandes casually waved his hand, and the bird's corpse suddenly accelerated and fell directly into his hand. This is also a trick? Garamandes casually threw the dead bird on the ground. If this is all a trick, then you should call someone who can use it to try. Do Chi itself is a profound knowledge. When practiced to the extreme, there is almost nothing that cannot be done. On the surface, Do Chi and magic are two completely different kinds of energy. However, when it comes to the strongest, there is not much difference between them. Although you have been practicing since you were young, there are too many impurities in your body. Although your talent is not bad, your training method is not very good, and you are unable to fully develop your potential. Miss Xuejing, please do not doubt my sincerity. I sincerely want to teach you some self-defense knowledge. Indeed, I like you very much. Although I do not know that you do not like me, I do not wish for the person I like to be hurt. If I am willing, I will do my best to increase your strength. Think about it carefully. If you really find me annoying, I will not force you to practice with me. With that, he bid farewell to Polar Snow and turned to leave. Looking at the tall figure of Garamandes leaving, and then looking at the short sword in her hand that was emitting light, a strange feeling suddenly rose in Xuejing's heart. Did he teach her the martial arts so that she could have the ability to protect herself? Was there no other purpose? Father, can you do that ability just now? She asked Polar Snow, who was beside her. Polar Snow was also shocked by Garamandes' strength. He shook his head and said, without using any weapons, using only Do Chi to kill a target hundreds of meters away, let alone me, even your uncle cannot do that. This Long Hua is too strong. No wonder you said that he could defeat swordsmen. I think his strength has already surpassed swordsman's realm. Xuejing's beautiful eyes widened. You mean he has already reached the legendary Divine Master realm? But he does not look that old. Polar Snow smiled bitterly. I do not know about that. But when he killed the bird just now, his body emitted a formless aura that made it difficult for me to breathe. Jing-er, it seems that Nianbing was right. As long as he is in our clear wind study, no matter what trouble it is, it will not be trouble. Divine Master, could he really be a Divine Master? Nianbing returned to the clear wind study in the evening. As soon as she entered, she was led to a large private room by a waiter. Polar Snow, Xuejing, and Garamandes were already waiting for her in the private room. Xueji roared with laughter when he saw Nianbing. Nianbing, I have good news to tell you. Today, Jing-er will officially become Mr. Long's disciple. Tonight's dinner will be the ceremony. Nianbing had already expected this result. What level of strength did Garamandes have? Xuejing and Polar Snow were just ordinary humans after all. It was not difficult for him to intimidate them. Then I will congratulate you in advance. Xuejing, since you have become Big Brother's disciple, shouldn't you call me martial uncle in the future? Uncle your head, let's talk about our own matters. Moreover, my master has already promised me that I do not need to call him master in the future. I can just call him by his name. Isn't that right, master? Garamandes quickly nodded. That's right. Calling him master is too formal. Just call him by his name. Nianbing smiled faintly and said, Xuejing, you have to cultivate well with my big brother from now on. It's all thanks to my big brother's help that I am where I am today. Actually, my big brother can be considered half a master to me. It's a pity that I do not cultivate battle chi. Otherwise, you would not have a chance to become the first disciple. Thinking back to how Garamandes had helped him increase his strength, he could not help but look at Garamandes with a strange gaze. Garamandes naturally understood what Nian Bing was thinking. He chuckled, Xuejing is a girl. Naturally, I do not need to teach her like you do. I have another way. Nian Bing said unhappily, How unfair? Xuejing asked curiously, How is it unfair? Longhua, what method did you use to teach Nian Bing? Don't worry, I can bear whatever he can bear. Nian Bing said mischievously, That's good. Big brother Long, you must treat everyone equally. Garamandes glared at him unhappily. Treat everyone equally, my ass. Let's eat, let's eat. Xuejing's curiosity was piqued. It was not so easy to take it back. She immediately pestered Garamandes, insisting that he tell her how he taught Nian Bing. Garamandes was helpless against her pestering. He could only tell her the process of how he taught Nian Bing. Xuejing could not help but shudder. I did not expect you to be so bad. Don't tell me you are also planning to teach me like that. Xuejing asked probingly. Now, she had already acknowledged Garamandes' strength. She also had a good reason to become his disciple. Her previous grudges had naturally disappeared. An expert who could possibly be a divine sage, no matter what he did, no one could stop him. Garamandes smiled. Didn't I just say that the method I taught you is different from his? He is a magician and needs to strengthen his body. You are a warrior and your body is already in good condition. What you need is only to get rid of the impurities. As for getting rid of the impurities, although the method I taught Nian Bing can also be used. But I was afraid that you would not be able to take it, so I chose another method. Nian Bing glared at Garamandes, as if to say that he valued love over friendship. Garamandes pretended not to see and looked at Xuejing with a smile. Xueji said, Nian Bing, I have not eaten your cooking for a long time. When you come back from Ice Moon City this time, you must show me your skills and let me have a good meal. Nian Bing smiled and said, That's only right. But I have not cooked for a while, so my hands are a little rusty. At this moment, a waiter walked in from outside and whispered in Xueji's ear, The fifth prince is here and wants to see Mississippi owner, what do you think? Although his voice was low, it could not escape the ears of Nian Bing and Garamandes. The two of them were furious and looked at each other. Garamandes stood up, I will go. Although his expression was calm, Nian Bing could see the anger in his heart. Ever since he told him yesterday that Yen Yun was interested in Long Ling and Xuejing, Garamandes had been extremely dissatisfied with him. Seeing Garamandes walk out slowly, Nian Bing did not stop him. Xueji looked at him questioningly. Nian Bing smiled. Just pretend that you do not know anything. Let Brother Long take care of everything. He knows what he is doing. Although he said that, he had already activated the power of his Tian Yen acupoint and followed Garamandes to look at the situation outside. Yen Yun had brought two people with him. One of them was the blue-clothed elder that Nian Bing had seen before, while the other was a gray-clothed elder. It was obvious that Yen Yun had increased the number of guards after the previous incident. Garamandes came to the hall and directly walked to Yen Yun's table and sat down. The two elders behind Yen Yun wanted to stop him but were stopped by Yen Yun. So it is Brother Long. Where is Miss Xuejing? Garamandes said indifferently, She has something to do and cannot come out. Why are you looking for her? Yen Yun frowned slightly. He was in a bad mood because he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Nian Bing. However, Long Ji had already come to apologize to him and agreed to his marriage with Long Ling and fully support him in ascending to the throne. At the same time, Long Ji also said that he would wait until he became the king of the Ice Moon Empire before he could officially marry Long Ling. Yen Yun did not care about this. To him, he could have as many women as he wanted. Although Long Ling and Xuejing were both stunning beauties, he was more interested in the Magic Casters Guild and the power behind Xuejing. Since Long Ji had already agreed to support him, he did not make things difficult for him. However, he had a deep impression of Nian Bing. If it was in the past, he would have already thought of ways to take revenge. However, it was more important to gain the support of various powers now. Therefore, he temporarily put the resentment in his heart aside. Brother Long, I am looking for Miss Xuejing for some personal matters. Why have you not eaten today? What do you want to eat? I will treat you. There's no need to treat me. I came out to tell you that from today onwards, don't look for Xuejing anymore. She has already acknowledged me as her master and is going to devote herself to cultivation. Yen Yun looked at Garamandes in shock. His eyes flashed continuously. I see. Then I would like to congratulate Brother Long and Miss Xuejing. However, I do have something important to discuss with Miss Xuejing. Can you ask her to come out and meet me? Garamandes reached out a hand and grabbed at Yen Yun in an extremely slow motion. The two elders behind Yen Yun flashed out at the same time and each reached out a hand to block his hand. Garamandes snorted in disdain. The golden light in his hand shone brightly. With a dull sound, the two elders were pushed back and his hand grabbed Yen Yun's neck. Yen Yun was shocked once again. He clearly saw Garamandes slowly reaching out his hand, but for some reason, he was unable to dodge. He could only allow himself to be grabbed by Garamandes. I don't like to repeat myself. You are not welcome in my sect, and neither is Xuejing. Leave immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Not to mention you, even if it was your father, it wouldn't be difficult for me to kill him. If you are not afraid of death, feel free to come again. The golden light flashed again and Yen Yun and the other two were sent out of the cool breeze abode. The two elders who came with Yen Yun exclaimed in a low voice, God's battle chi. Yen Yun looked at them in shock. Are you sure that was God's battle chi? God tier was a supreme existence in the hearts of all cultivators. If Garamandes was really a God tier master, then everything he said was not just a simple threat. The two elders nodded at the same time. The elder in blue said, That's right, that was definitely God's battle chi. Otherwise, we would have been able to resist at all. The difference between Saint's battle chi and God's battle chi is insurmountable. Your Highness, you must not provoke this person in the future. Otherwise, unless the Ice Goddess priests personally come, no one will be able to deal with him. Yen Yun snorted hatefully. He didn't think that his plan would be so unsuccessful. First, there was the strange Nian Bing, and now there was a legendary God-tier master. His original plan was completely ruined. However, in this world, strength was everything. Not to mention that he couldn't use force against the cool breeze abode. Even if he could, how many people would it take to contend against a God-tier master? It seemed that it was impossible to obtain the Snow Clan's support. Yen Yun was a flexible person. After confirming that he couldn't do anything, he immediately left with his two guards.